Yeah. There was clearly an extra flipping button.
No, you like.
How's it looking?
If they had audio, it would be a good start.
Yeah, just do mine.
No, do something.
Check your setting. I mean, you should be setting it up. But it depends again. Your beam I don't think that many well, I know it's put that back
Into there.
sound pretty good. You don't need to close it out. That much.
Only if I turn it on.
All stable. Yeah, it's like a program to get installed automatically. And then you're trying to work out what's powering what.
Real text, the real text is internal sound card, I know that. So, 3 capture cards, stereo mix, and a microphone. Oh, I think that's the line in, isn't it?
Yeah, so that's coming from that. I don't know where it's coming from.
But there's no audio coming out of that.
So that could be the video. Audio coming directly from that.
Oh, yes, please. Yes, of course I know. The sound, it's not coming either internal mic, but it's not coming off the feet. Otherwise you wouldn't hear anything.
Yeah, people are just desperate to get out.
Video.
That's hilarious. Yeah, I went to a drive-through at
So
Alexandra Palace.
that means you're going to have to mute. Yeah, that's going to help audio back then.
The other problem we had is that.
So that means you're going to have to mute the audio
the engine
when we play the video through.
You have to run the engine for a bit. No, the electric.
So what are you going to do? You're going to switch to the videos on there,
Our video, the intro will run off of
you.
here anyway.
Yeah, so the intro videos off your laptop.
Yeah, the great ones will be in your conversation. That's fine.
No, it's not just it. He's in mine somewhere.
So it'll be coming up with one of those two. But the PA is pretty good.
Yeah.
Let's go with it. So you just have to apologise.
So start video.
Yeah, so it worked really well.
Or which at the camera room where
I feel like there's still a place for it, obviously. Not.
Near enough. Okay.
It's supposed to be immersive. There's no point doing it if it's just going to be like things posting out on the screen.
That one.
Yeah.
So do you want to switch? Do you want to switch to the prelude?
I suppose you're right.
The intro.
Occasionally.
And then so do prelude video, then it's the intro video.
No,
Yeah, I wasn't sure how well.
I'll let them. I'll use the opening titles from them and use the video from here.
Yeah.
For it. Straight.
So are you definitely seeing what they're seeing on screen?
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Are you
I mean, annoyingly, we've got the double logo, but that's just a quick fix. But what I need is the oh, come on, don't fail me there. I'm just waiting to do the graphics, but it's failed.
And it's been good since.
I just need,
As usual?
I need.
Yeah. Came a few weeks ago. My friends are members, so ready to members.
I just need to re-find the.
Side arm 2, wasn't it?
It's a great song. It's kind of because it's not on the actual essence version. It's a touch of it, and it just takes us to
Now, so you are taking it.
Well,
Yeah, so we're mainly boxes, but we also try and diversify a bit because we've got the markets where we need that.
I can't remember where the overlay is. Do you know what? At this point, just let it go. Duplicate overlay, but
So,
I'm good to go.
Yeah?
Thank you.
That's all right. Yeah. Who's giving us the nod?
let me go and find this. It's all
Yeah, that's because it's sort of staffed by cinema fans, so they really are passionate about the film. So, and that comes across, because we're like, probably saying to us, we still introduce the films. So, they're passionate about seeing the film as well, so it's sort of serious. People really seem to like it. I don't like it. Yes, yeah. And there's a cinema near me, an independent one, that always does that, and the owner he doesn't hold back. If he doesn't like it, he's like, I don't know why you're in for this. It's like, what people love him for, that's sort of the reason why they go. So, yeah. What's the lights on? I'm going to grab my stuff and go and really nice talking to you. Yeah. This is must.
Good afternoon. I hope you all had a really nice lunch and you're not going to go to sleep on us. Welcome to everybody online and also you guys here. I know you cinema independents have always juggling balls and lots of different hats on, so to spend 2 days in a London auditorium is pretty special. I have 2 hats on today. I'm Sandy Caffel, by the way. I have my Furco Seating hat on, who are a sustaining member of the CTC, and I also am Governor of the CTC as well. We've got a terrific afternoon of content lined up for you, and you'll find it both educational and thought-provoking. And don't forget, whether you're in the room or you're online, you can use the QR code on the screen throughout and interact with the presenters and panellists to ask any questions you may have. So without further ado, which is a phrase that's been used a lot over the last couple of days, I'd like to welcome to the stage CTC's President Richard Mitchell and Graham Lodge, Vice President, to formally welcome you to our CTC One Community Day 2012.
Thanks, Sandy. Oh, that's very loud. Good afternoon, everybody, and everyone online. Just for the benefit of everybody in the room, we have people joining us around the world from as far away as Malaysia and Vietnam, all the way through to Brazil and Mexico and Argentina this afternoon. So you are part of a global community. So on behalf of Graham and myself and the whole team, welcome to One Community Day. Thanks to Phil and the UKCA for allowing us to hijack their conference. Today is something of a celebration, albeit subdued. The past 2 years has been truly awful for all of us, really. But day by day, week by week, we're in recovery mode. Things are moving, we're gathering pace, confidence is returning, as we've seen yesterday and today. And whilst the industry may have changed, with maybe some new business models, the shared resilience and determination to succeed remains. 2 years ago, when darkness descended upon all of us, CTC stepped up to do its bit to help to keep the industry primed for this recovery. We took the bold decision to open our doors to allow professionals all around the world to access our community and all of the learning materials that we have to offer. To say that our team was shocked by the response would be a massive understatement. That there was this desire for continuous improvement, even during really tough times, was testament to the fortitude of our industry. And with the support of people in the room who have been part of the community and people online as well, CTC is today the largest, not-for-profit technology organisation in the world. And we're very proud of that, with over 750 members in about 77 countries. Now, all of that work's been achieved on an incredibly shoestring budget, without any real income for 3 years. You know, it's affected us just as it's affected every other part of the industry. But the outputs have been driven by a team of mad, passionate cinephiles from all around the world who want to give back to the industry that we all love so much. So, from technical guidance and white papers through to digital content, magazines, seminars, events online, including one community day back in November 2020, we tried to do our bit to help. Now, I haven't really had a chance to do this publicly, but I want to thank every single person by name that's been part of the CTC team. They've all had their own personal difficulties over the past 2 years, but yet they found the resolve, tenacity and the enthusiasm to help educate and bring deliverables to the industry. So, Graham Lodge, Dave Norris, Peter Knight, who's on our streaming cameras today, Sarah Luthwaite, Simon Tandy, Paul Wilmot, Tony Purvis, Ali Bonacci, Adam McDonald, Andre Mort, Sandy, Saul Mahoney, Mike Bradbury, Marcus Overath, David Pope, Gronja Clark, Mark Kendall, John Dowsland, Michael Denner, Patrick Wonsowski, Brian Claypool, Mark Christensen, Jan Rasmussen, Tom Burt, Ruth Hinton, Mark de Cavain, Shram Sisler, Julia Vinikarova, Aligi Tentori, Roland Jones and Teresa English. From me personally, thank you for everything you've done and continue to do for CTC and our industry. Now, we were very fortunate heading into the pandemic that we had a small but passionate group of supporters who have been behind us and gave us a small but solid financial platform to enable us to deliver what we have managed to do. And I wanted to put them up on screen just to say thank you again to them for their continued support. Now, as we emerge, the COVID response program we put in place 2 years ago comes to an end today. I'm delighted to say that we are back. But our work isn't done. Now that the industry is recovering, there are sizable skill shortages in our industry, inevitably. And we're gearing up today for that bold future where we can help to address some of these. A future where CTC continues to serve that global industry. Now, to do this, we've been bold and reimagined the business model of a trade body. We want to serve our global community. We want to ensure that there's no socio-economic barriers that exist to our community, so that everyone in this industry working anywhere in the world can learn and can play their part in making the movie-going experience the best it can be. So, to make quite a landmark announcement, I'm going to hand over to our CFO and Vice President Graham to tell you all about it.
Thanks, Richard. I seem to have gained a new title, CFO.
Yeah.
I thought I was just trading.
No.
As we headed into the pandemic, as Richard said, we did so on a pretty strong financial footing with a substantial growth plan in place, which would have helped us continue to provide what we've done for the last few years of providing vital resources to the industry. Then COVID kind of came along and disrupted. However, because of the small foundation, the strong foundation that we had, thanks to our sponsors, all of you that Richard's just mentioned. It enabled us to continue to create the free community membership scheme that we have now run for the best part of 2 years, allowing the industry to access our platform from anywhere at zero charge, and for us to deliver all the things that we mentioned previously, despite having zero revenue for the last 2 years. As you saw earlier, the response has been overwhelming, and it came from all corners of the global cinema community. The interest and engagement with our communities helped us grow to become the biggest not-for-profit trade body. We think we're pretty certain about that, by some distance. But as we emerge from the pandemic, this has presented us with a challenge and an opportunity, and lots of discussion within the Board of Governors as to how we should proceed. The world we've entered is very different, and in some respects the business models of the old have been challenged like never before. As we look to the future and today wind down the COVID response plan, we want to keep our very engaged community together to continue to serve all of our members around the world and ensure that we share knowledge to help improve the movie-going experience. So, just as we've innovated in the past, we're doing that again today. You got the clicker? Good man. We're ripping up the membership schemes, tearing down the barriers and ensuring that everyone, irrespective of economic circumstance, wherever they are, can continue to benefit from the output of the CTC. Because for everyone on the leadership team, this has been about not making money, but about giving back to the industry. And to do this, we're launching 2 membership levels to sit alongside our 2 existing sponsorship levels. Firstly, there is the new Essentials membership level, a zero-cost membership option, which allows those members who can't afford to pay a membership fee at all to still benefit from most of our deliverables after release. And secondly, our new Supporting membership level, where we provide members with a donation-based choice model, allowing them to choose how much they wish to donate annually to help support the development of the community and for the generation of future educational content, with donations ranging from £10 up to £100 a year. And in return for that donation, our supporting members will receive full voting rights, priority access to all deliverables, including the Cinema Technology magazine, discounts on future training courses and seminars, and early access to CTC industry events. Thanks for taking. These new membership levels are live on the website right now, and the QR code on screen will take you there. So please go ahead and sign up, and if you can, donate as much as you can sensibly afford to help keep us providing great deliverables like you've seen over the last 2 years. As we said before, the vision of the CTC has always been to provide knowledge-sharing opportunities for all, to create the best movie-going experiences possible, and we believe that with this major change today, we will continue to achieve that vision. This is a bold step, but hopefully with the financial support of you, our global members and our generous corporate sponsors, we believe that we can create a financially strong platform once again to help us continue to play our part in shaping the future of the industry. So with that announcement done, I pass back to the President.
Oh dear, they need some organisation, don't they, don't they, don't they?
Sorry, Mum.
Thank you, gentlemen. With cinema operations moving online, an increasing number of connected devices within cinemas, understanding the latest threats to data and network security and the risks of these is imperative. I'd like to welcome Andy Compton, Managing Director from leading cyber security consultants Cortida, to provide a snapshot of the current landscape, the type of threats cinemas might face and the preventative measures to be taken. Thank you.
See if this works before we get too far into this. Excellent, it does, thank you. Today I really want to start with by just introducing 4 themes that are going to perhaps explain or take us on a bit of a journey. I just want you to bear these in mind as we go through the presentation. So one is that data has become a valuable commodity. It is bought, sold, traded, stolen, processed in greater ways than ever before. and not always for good. Certainly there's a lot of good use of processing of data, but there's also bad use of this, which we'll delve into a little bit later. So this second point is that everything we know and are is becoming connected to everything and to everyone. So perhaps an example that I can give here is that my wristwatch is connected to my heart rate right now. It's going pretty fast, but you know, that's one of those things. My telephone is connected to my geolocation, so where I am right now is there. My bank account is connected to my spending activities and my spending profile and how much money I have. And perhaps the systems that I use at work are also connected. They're connected to, you know, to my employees and to my customers. And so this prolific range of data sharing is endemic nowadays. Point 3 really is that cyber attackers will target these systems to gain access to data to support, you know, firstly criminality that involves stealing or exposing or compromising data. But as a secondary point to that, the systems that they attack are quite often the jump points to the data. So we can compromise data and data can be stolen, but also cyber attacks really talk about electronic systems. They talk about networks, they talk about computers, they talk about mobile phone devices, and that's part of the cyber attack process. It's these connected systems that provide access to data. It's not just about exposing data, it's also about affecting the integrity of the systems that house the data, or the data itself, and it's also about impacting the availability of these systems and information. In a business context relevant to this audience, perhaps availability could be the removal of access to systems during an online broadcast or a live broadcast of some description. So point 4, or theme 4, is that we have become reliant upon these systems at a faster rate than we've gone to protect them, really. You know, we're very early in our days of protecting information, but the data has been growing exponentially for a very long time, and we're going to have a look at just how much. So with those notions, if we assume that people will attack systems, we have this position here where these are the world's largest data breaches that are out there at the moment. And I think what's true from these systems is we know, and we can see this in the in the TV and in the newspapers, in the media, is that every system, every breach is bigger and bolder and has more records exposed on there. It's become a real problem. So people are attacking systems. These records that have been stolen or compromised didn't fall out of our pockets down the side of the cushions in the chair. They were actively stolen by targeted attacks. What's the distance or the trajectory here is that 878 million records were compromised in January 2021. Put that into context for you. That was more than all of the records that were compromised in 2017 across all 12 months. So the rate that data is being compromised or stolen is exponential, and this is only going to grow even further. Cyber targeted system of getting to data through systems. So we're in this realm of this perfect storm right now. Data is everywhere. We've covered that as a principle in the opening slide. Cybercrime is evolving. So cyber criminals have become ruthlessly efficient at extracting money. They have become better than any organisation, or as good as any high street retail organisation. Protecting from those takes skill and it takes understanding. And today we have, like your industry as well, we have a shortfall of skilled, experienced, qualified people that are able to help with the cyber protections of needs of actually both individuals, organisations and industries across the globe. So 3 million, that's a huge number of cyber professionals that we're missing, causing this problem. And when there's not a great deal of skill, or there's not enough skill, and we're in a catch-up mode, of course that results in poor advice. Poor advice leads to insecure systems, and actually a lot of waste of money, because there's a lot of people plugging cyber security gaps by just buying boxes that have got shiny shiny lights on them or blinking lights on it. And actually, it's a process for cybersecurity of both people, process, and technology. There's a trilogy of things that need to happen for cybersecurity to really become effective, and we'll delve into those a little bit later. So this perfect storm leads to this increasing likelihood of cyber attack. Just want to talk through this really. This is still really about the trajectory of sharing data. So the teal coloured or the bluey coloured graph at the end is how many connected devices, IoT devices, things that have got SIM carding, things that connect within buildings, sensors, temperature gauges, connected cars, smart motorways, all of these things that have Internet of Things devices that are connected. We are seeing this explosion that's going to result by 2025 in 75 billion of these devices connected across the internet, all sharing information like never before. Relatively speaking, we can see from the purple ones, this is the trend for the number of humans on Earth, and we are anticipating that by 2025 we'll be seeing 9 connected devices for every human on Earth. It doesn't take, I know that sounds a very large figure, but it really doesn't take much to when you start thinking about those that you have with you today and those that you have with you at home, just so that you know how quickly and readily we're going to be sharing information and continue to be doing so. This one is a little bit of fun, really, this slide. It reinforces that data, we're used to now, become used to sharing information. So data is shared, viewed and published like never before. 197 million emails sent every 60 seconds across the internet. So every one of these records that you see up here, the 69 million messages that are sent, are all representative of what happens every 60 seconds. We are going to be continuing to share information like never before, and attackers will be ready for that. I particularly like the 2 million swipes that happen every 60 seconds, and I'm hoping that that's not one very sad singleton looking for love. We never know. So just an interesting take on what we're doing in our private lives, let alone what's happening in our business lives as well. So I said at the beginning that data can be used for good and for bad. And that's the reality of it. It is used for both in equal amounts. So everybody wants data. If I think about the positive part of this, then the more that we have access to data, then the more that we can shape data, that we can model data, we can find solutions for industry, for humanity, for individuals. We see this in things like personalised cancer treatments as an example. These are really positive uses of data. But we also see that when the data is used badly, and people will pay to be able to use this badly, that we can influence the outcome of political elections, allegedly. Or perhaps, and we have direct experience of knowing the criminality that's involved in subverting systems and accessing data within this industry, and of course within other industry, also know that the proceeds that come from that are often used to support illicit or other forms of criminal activity or ideology. So, same data, everybody wants it for good, wants it for bad. If we look after it properly, then and we can stop the baddies from using it in a bad way, then we can focus on how data can be used to improve the world for us. So it's bought and sold and traded in incredible numbers, and the systems, the cyber attacks to be able to get to it. How big is this? This is a terrifying figure. 1.5 trillion is the cost of cybercrime for industry across the various sort of sectors and different factions of cybercrime. If we were to equate that to the size of the GDP of a country, cybercrime would be between Australia and Spain as a nation. If cybercrime was there, it would be a country that large, or the GDP of a country that large. So this isn't a small thing. There are 1,000 successful cyber attacks every week across the globe. And that's up about 50%, or 2021 was up 50% on 2020. So again, this problem isn't going away. We're going to have to, address those problems. Who wants it? Well, cyber criminals want the data, and they've become very organised. I said at the beginning that they're ruthlessly organised. So if I can go onto the dark web, perhaps one of these more illicit sort of parts of the web, where I can anonymously order a hit on a competitor's website to be able to take it out at a particularly troublesome time for them. Maybe it's the release of tickets, maybe it's about an online broadcast of some description. Then I can make a lot of money with that, but the level of sophistication that's gone into these attacks and the level of big business has gone into them is that once you've ordered that hit on that competitive, on your competitor, the person that ordered it or commissioned it is just as likely to get a customer satisfaction survey asking them whether on a scale of 1 to 5 the effect was good, bad or ugly. This is the reality of just how organised it's become today. Actually, sorry, just wanted to make a point there. When I stood up and gave a similar presentation probably a year ago, we saw that the figure for organised crime being behind these types of attacks, these 1,000 successful attacks, let alone the unsuccessful attacks per week, was about 55%. In the latest study that I've read, that's risen to about 80%. So cybercrime really has become very organised. And I think this tells us the same story, actually. So what we're seeing here is that we're seeing, if we split attackers between what happens outside our organisation and what happens inside our organisation, then a few years ago we were looking at about 70% of attacks came from outside and about 30% came from inside. That's quite scary, and of course I'm not suggesting that that workplaces are overrun with criminals who want to subvert their employers, but there was a reason why there was a lot of attacks from inside an organisation, and that's because the cybersecurity measures, the cybersecurity education, the awareness, these process and policy pieces weren't in place in many of the organisations. So often these challenges were accidental rather than deliberate. But of course, yes, we know that there are deliberate attacks that happen within organisations as well. Criminality, external attacks going up slightly at the moment at the cost of internal attacks going down. So this is I think this is actually quite a good sign, because what this means is that awareness is starting to creep in within organisations, perhaps not quite quickly enough, and the measures are starting to creep in. And one of the challenges with cybersecurity over the last certainly 10 years has been the availability of funds within the organisation and the recognition of this as a board issue or a company-wide issue, rather than it just being an IT department issue. So as the funds have started to be released, as the awareness programs have started to kick in, we started to see, and as they started to affect share prices when organisations get hit, then we see the implementation of policy and process and technology, this myriad, this combination of three things that I was talking about. So just taking that slide a little bit further and just thinking about the motivations, we can clearly see that most cybercrime is driven and increasingly driven by financial benefit. That's absolutely what attackers are looking to do. This graph, I think, is going to look a little bit different in 12 months, because right now it says that espionage is on the way down. This is nation-on-nation type state attacks, maybe for the destabilisation of a government or to create ill will within a nation. These types of attacks were on the way down, but of course we're in a politically active part of time right now, particularly with Russia and Ukraine. So I suspect that the espionage piece will pick up again in the next results that we see. But I think the point that I want to take away from here is the majority of crime is very organised around cybersecurity attacks. Is very, very organised and is motivated by cash. There are other attackers, and what are their motivations? Here's just a few examples. I'm not going to go through all of them, but let's just say, well, you can see them there. So some want to conduct cybercrime to promote some form of ideology. Some have a different opinion to the opinion that you have and want to make a point, so they're now hacktivists rather than activists. Press aren't beyond using using this for good purposes and bad purposes. Of course, we have employees, and again, not singling out employees as bad people in any way, but we know that a lot of pressure is put on employees, and we know that they're really, really heavily targeted, particularly through phishing campaigns, where attackers are trying to entice them and trick them into making mistakes. So it's a real challenge here, and of course, coerced as well. So a number of motivations. So I want to introduce really here three notions: confidentiality, integrity, and availability, because this relates to data and to systems. This is a reason why systems are attacked and what for. Confidentiality is about stealing or exposing or compromising data to follow these criminal methods and criminal means. If I think about I'm going to use an analogy here of my care record, my NHS care record. I want my NHS care record to be kept confidential. Yeah, I don't want it shared. I want it to be available within the NHS system, and I want it to be correct. So if we think about if I was to unfortunately have a motoring accident and I was rushed to hospital, I would want my care record to be available at the point that it's needed by the medic. I would want them to know that there is an allergy in there with a particular drug, or if that was the case, and that I'd want them to be able to have access to that information, and I'd want the box that says allergic to penicillin to be true rather than false. I wouldn't want the integrity of that to be changed. The reality is that cyber attackers look to work on these three factors. I either want to compromise a system, or I want to compromise the data. I want to affect the reliability of that information or the correctness of the information within the system, or even that I want to make the system, and maybe this is a system, very much like the systems we're using in here today, but I don't want that to be available at a particular time. So confidentiality, integrity, and availability of data and systems are usually what drive cyber attacks. Okay, how disruptive are they? I guess this is probably about the best description or illustration I could provide for this. So if the image on the left is our orderly workday, the image on the right is what happens when everything goes wrong, when the call goes out that says we've been breached, there's a problem. The organisations turn into absolute chaos, and it doesn't really matter what you do, but your operational objectives as individual businesses and operators will be severely challenged during an attack. So it doesn't matter whether your objective is to be the fastest at something, the quickest, the best, the cheapest, the most profitable, the most stealthy. All of whatever it is, a cyber attack will upturn your ability to achieve your operational objectives very quickly, because you'll be running around the business with your hair on fire. That's generally speaking what happens in organisations. Bad rush decisions are made, and we're not only facing at that point what's happening within the organisation with everybody's hair on fire. What we're also looking there is that, particularly in this environment, the call centres completely overloaded, because the information about a breach is usually out there long before. Actually, sometimes long before you would know yourself. Quite often, the early signs of this will be something that's reported on social media, or perhaps something on a Twitter chat somewhere, whether that's about a payment card that had been stolen, or whether or a double charge, or there will be something. And quite often, the early rumblings of data breaches and cyber breaches come on social media. So there's going to be a lot of people looking across your communication and jamming up your communication channels to understand, what's going on, why they've been double charged, why their tickets haven't arrived. Beyond that, we know that from cyber breaches that staff very quickly become overloaded as well, and employees, because the human effort that's usually involved in the recovery from a cyber event is huge. it really is very, very significant. The next slide will go into this a little bit further. Adverse press and or social media coverage, we've kind of touched on that as usually the first indicators. And an immediate drop-off in share value. So when the share value starts to drop off, I think you've usually got a different set of people screaming down the phone at you as well. So, and who are those people likely to be that are filling your phones, filling your emails, filling your things? Well, they're likely to be the media who want to know what's going on because they're acting on behalf of, maybe many thousands of individuals that feel that they may have been compromised. Your customers may be wanting to know directly. Your business partners may want to know that you have connected technology and connected systems, whether or not there's a risk that you may have compromised their systems as a stepping stone or being used as a stepping stone into their network. You have your insurers who will be clamoring to understand the likely and potential liability that they may face. And that drop-off that we talked about typically usually ends up at somewhere between 3.5% and 7.2% as a shareholder price or share value price. So these things generally recover over time, but the thing that influences that share price, by the way, most quickly is how well you communicate as an organisation with the people that have potentially been affected by it. So quite an interesting place there. But there will be intense interest from media, customers, partners, insurers, regulators, shareholders and your employees. So much better, I think, to be said, to try and avoid such a situation in the first place. So these are unconfirmed costs, but I want to talk to you about DLA Piper is an international law firm who got hit by the NotPetya virus a few years ago. It was a ransomware piece. And through one of their offices in the Ukraine, they became collateral damage to another action. That very quickly wiped out every data center and every Windows-based server that they had within their organization, within hours. So a global organization brought to its knees within hours. Every system had to be rebuilt from the ground up, taking many hours and many days, and actually weeks in some respects. They had no email for 4 days, ability to receive them, which means little ability to communicate with their customers. 15,000 hours of paid overtime in IT to rebuild that global network within as quick a time as possible. Their ability to bill clients was destroyed, and we know that lawyers like to do billing, don't we? So, we can imagine just how disruptive and how painful that was for them as well. And of course, this was played out across 40 countries across the world. So I appreciate that different organisations of different sizes here today, some of them local, some of them national, some of them international, or global. But there is scale that happens here because the problems that happen are generally very similar. The impacts are very similar when these hit. So other people that were caught in this very same action were Merck, 870 million expected costs, FedEx 400 million, and we had Maersk, the shipping agents, at 300 million, all through this single attack. All of these people, by the way, collateral damage of what was suspected to be a state attack on the Ukraine designed to destabilise the economy. I can't say whether that's true or not, I have no idea, but that was certainly the popular reported position. This one, of course, the impacts are on individuals, but I just want to draw your attention to here. So what's really obvious here is that there's increasing expectations, and we see some very large red dots, and we see some smaller teal-coloured or greeny-coloured dots. The difference is the size of the fine for data breaches that happened, the red ones being the big painful ones, the green being the smaller ones. But how have they changed from green to red? And how have they gone from small bubbles to big bubbles? Well, the answer is clear. Where it changes is in 2018, and in 2018 is when GDPR was introduced. So what happened was the upper limit of fines that could be issued by the Information Commissioner's Office for data breaches was amended by GDPR, the introduction of GDPR, and the maximum limits were extended most significantly. So what we're seeing here is we're seeing bigger data breaches with bigger fines because there's the ability to fine the great. We're seeing that we're seeing the regulators bearing their teeth a little bit against that. But of course, it's not just regulators that expect you to look after information. It's your employees, and if your employees leave if they feel that their personal information has been lost, customers cancel contracts if their personal information or their business information is lost or impacted. Business partners perhaps cancel contracts, and shareholders generally expect heads to roll, usually at the top when cyber attacks happen. So, just coming back now to what is attacked and how, give you a snapshot into this. 50% of attacks are generally involve web applications, and in relation to yourselves, I wonder how many of your customer databases are sitting in a web-enabled environment at the moment. Yeah, it's a very significant percentage of the attacks because they're deliberately targeting either payment systems for credit card data or for personal information of shoppers and customers. So computing systems, email systems, databases, phones, tablets, all of this information, all of these devices are attacked actively through cyber attacks. And how are they doing it? Well, phishing. Phishing is by far the largest risk that many organisations face at the moment. And I have to say at this point, we asked around, and we work within the industry, and we tested a few thoughts, and we said, are you more concerned about, people, trying to hack other parts of the network, or is it about disrupting, live broadcast? And categorically, the big number that came back was said, we are terrified of ransomware. That is our number one risk that we are worried about, because that is the one that will stop us being able to do anything. It wasn't anything more glamorous. It actually told us that this industry is the same as most industries when it comes to cyber attack. You have data, you have systems, people monetize, and attackers monetize systems and data to be able to take advantage of it. And so if phishing is the method, what's phishing doing? Well, it's delivering the malware, it's delivering the software that starts the ransomware process for you. They're probably the two, or certainly phishing is by far one of the most prolific and worrying concerns out there, because it's delivered via email to everybody in your estate that has an email address. Use of stolen, forced or reused passwords, big problem. Here, weak passwords, sharing them, or perhaps allowing them to be brute forced or brute attacked through dictionary checks that attackers and pen testers and people like us are able to check and test for organisations to see how secure they are. Denial of service and account takeovers. So what's an account takeover? Quite often we think of account takers as impersonation of somebody. So if I can impersonate my systems administrator, then the likelihood is that I will have all of the credentials and all of the authorities and all of the rights to access that system that the administrator has. So account takeovers are a very popular route for cyber attacks. I'm not really going to linger on this one because I think we've probably covered that through other slides, other than to say this industry is similar but different, but actually the attacks are very much the same. So number one priority risk is ransomware. This is, for those of you who don't know, this is a series of events that is derived usually out of an email that initiates a series of events that allows the systems to be encrypted and not recoverable without paying a ransom to some individual or some organisation that's very, very heavily organised. The average cost of a ransom demand at the moment is $220,000. So it's not a small sum when you're being hit by ransomware. And because they can do that relatively easy, because it's relatively easy to get phishing emails into the inboxes of all of the people that are in here today, it makes it very attractive to attackers. Attackers, why would they carry on, robbing banks with shotguns nowadays? They're going to go to prison for life for that, and the costs are just too high, and the complexity and the difficulty involved in that are too high. This is a much simpler way now of being hidden, so to speak. Perhaps doing it across a different legal entity or a different country, perhaps behind curtains, perhaps from a bedroom, perhaps from a business office that's been very organised. What I would say here is that depending on the size of your organisation, you will be phished, or ransomware will be installed in one of two ways. So the larger the organisation, the more likely is that the successful attack will come from the email that arrives in your inbox. And if you are a smaller organisation, it's likely that you don't have the same level of sophistication and investment in systems and process that the bigger organisations have been able to afford and perhaps evolved over time. So it's more likely that that will come in through a compromised system or an unpatched server or some software that has some compromise or vulnerability sitting within it. So just two different, or a number of different routes there, but typically email is a problem for all, but more of a problem for bigger companies. The route of ingress into smaller companies will likely come from server weaknesses and software vulnerabilities. Just a couple of numbers on here, and we're charging towards the end really now here, but 14 phishing attempts per employee per year is roughly, each of you sitting here today is likely to be the number of attacks or attempts at attacks that you're likely to be targeted with. And this figure, 27%, we call this a phish-prone score. This is the propensity of an organisation of what percentage of their employees will have a propensity for clicking on a phishing email. Remember, it only takes one. But for untrained organisations or for untrained individuals, before training around the awareness of this piece, 27% is the kind of phish-prone susceptibility number for most organisations. And here is the interesting point on, well, I think it's interesting, you may differ, but this has evolved. And how has this evolved? So originally, attackers were just sending out this, screens were going red with ransomware, and that was the first that you knew, and you had to recover from that very quickly. More recent attacks that have involved ransomware, the attackers are coming in first, quietly, stealthily, insidiously, and they are stealing the database, the customer database. Why would they do that? Well, they're doing that, and they're also stealing the backups, or they're corrupting the backups. But the reason that they steal the databases, and the reason is so that when the organisation says, I'm not going to pay, thanks very much, we'll just rebuild from our backups. One, they know that they can just redeploy the backup that's already been infected, so they can just back in square one. And the other is they can actually then say, that's fine, thanks very much. Here's a sample of 1,000 of your customers. We're now going to target your customers directly and see whether or not we can monetize their personal information, for fraud. So we have seen this evolution of go for the company, and then, but before you do that, steal the database and then take the customer database back and then use that as a secondary line of attack. And if you still don't pay, well, of course, they've still got this information that they can resell on the dark web, or they can start targeting the client database with. It's a very complex slide. Well, it looks it, but it really isn't. What it says is that if you have an easy-to-spot phishing email arrive in your inbox, there's a smaller likelihood of you clicking on it. But if you have a complex and sophisticated phishing email, a piece of ransomware, then the likelihood is that greater than 75% of your employees would click on it. So quite a worrying thing, given the power of email to deliver malware, which initiates the ransomware services. So priority risk 2, I'm not going to spend very long on this one, but it is the data exfiltration. It is the the theft of the customer database. And why do we care about the theft of the customer database? Well, we care about our customers, of course. We don't want them to be victims of crime. We don't want to be associated with losing their information. Logically speaking, there are huge fines available now from the ICO for losing customer data as well. So there are a number of reasons why this is a concern and should be a concern about your customer databases, either on your website being compromised or being compromised through command and control software that's installed through emails, or perhaps through weak and vulnerable systems. So those are the primary risks that we're encouraging organisations to think about today. It's a much bigger problem than just the few moments, the 30 minutes or so that we've been talking about this today, and the solutions are, of course, much more complicated than just train everybody. And I wouldn't really attempt to present really the solution to all of these problems today, because this isn't necessarily the right audience to do that, and there's a much bigger conversation about how we stop these things happening. But they're definitely the threats that we suspect, and we have had reinforced from the industry, the exhibition industry, that tells them they're worried about. So, very high level solution: understand what we're protecting and why, understand the risks associated with the information we're protecting, introduce appropriate people, process and technology controls, introduce the right process to govern them so we don't end up with security that is like an MOT, something we do once a year, at the point that we're forced to do it, or the point that we have an audit or an external company come in. It needs to be a continuous process because it's a continuous risk. Remember the follow the sun model. Somebody somewhere, some attackers are always awake. And if they're not, they've got technology and automation very heavily involved in that. Bringing about a security-aware culture is really important, so having the conversation with people within the business, and if we can educate individuals within a company, they become safer in their personal computing as well as in their work computing. So there's a good cultural piece there for us to be looking at. And then finally, I think for the people that are directly here today, my closing sentiments are that if your password is up here, I recommend that you change it. So 1 in 12 passwords is passwords, I think, is at the moment. So we'll leave you to have a quick look at that. I don't know whether we're sharing these slides later or not, but that's the bit that you can take away from today, which is to make sure your password is secure. And if there is any advice on a password, the guidance has been changing a little bit over the last 2 or 3 years. The common theme now is 3 random words connected together. So cat, dog, I don't know, burger, whatever it is, rather than it being a single password with some letters and characters. So 3 random words connected together that's easily memorable. And actually, the NCSC aren't necessarily recommending that you change that with the same frequency as other organisations, because it's easier for you to remember and harder for them to crack. So, thank you very much for your time. That's everything from me, and if anybody wants to talk about the solution a little bit more, I'm very happy to get involved and do that. And I hope you have a great rest of the show, and thank you for giving me the opportunity of spending a sort of half hour or so just talking about something we're very passionate about. So, thank you.
Thank you. We've just got one question. The information is beautiful slide on the scale of cyber attacks also shows that percentage of malicious insiders are roughly equal to human error for attacks.
Yes.
Do you think that there's an imbalance in protecting ourselves from employees rather than educating them?
Oh, that's a big question, isn't it? There is a huge benefit to the awareness piece. What I can tell you there is that, generally speaking, I showed a figure of susceptibility of about, I think it was 27%. With training, that figure can get 27%. I hear it bandied around. I think it's a little, I don't think it's quite right, but I hear the figure of 4%. So if you go through a continuous process of educating, testing, and reinvesting in these cultural, creating this culture of security within an organisation, then you will absolutely see a marked reduction in risk. I don't think that the majority of attacks that happen internally happen because of inside malicious actors. There are some of those, and we certainly do encounter those, fairly regularly. But most is there wasn't a policy within the organisation, there wasn't a process, there wasn't a culture. We didn't have a no blame reporting culture, so I just didn't say anything. I just kept quiet when I clicked on that email and nothing happened. I thought it was a bit odd, but I was a bit worried I might have done something. So I think hopefully that answers the question. But the awareness piece is a huge, huge piece of reducing cyber risk. Thank you.
Well, that's all a bit scary, isn't it? I mean, I bet you've forgotten about the dog going into space now. Phil hasn't. Next, we have a discussion which builds on a panel session from the last UKCA conference focused around audience engagement and awareness with technology. I'd like to welcome Helen Budge of Celluloid Junkie, along with Ruth Hinton from View International and Raj Khalid from Cineworld, to discuss consumer attitudes to technology in cinemas, the opportunities over the coming years to phase technology as part of the cinema experience, and the specific audience segments where technology-based messaging may be essential in order to excite cinema goers. Thank you.
Hello, 'tis I, Helena Bouge. I'm not Patrick, for those of you who are really disappointed, but for those of you who miss him, just imagine a pretty tall Swede with an enviable bouffant. I'm the first person to admit that I am the least techie person in this room. So just for all your benefit, I might just throw out some words like Lamberts, Speckle. I'm not even sure what some of that means, but anyway. So yes, I am very pleased to be here with Ruth Hinton, View International, and Raj Khalid from Cineworld Cinemas Picturehouse. I'm going to hand over to you guys in a sec just to sort of introduce your roles and what you do, etc., for your respective companies. And then we'll dive in to engaging audiences with cinema tech. So, Ruth.
Thank you. I'm Ruth Hinton. I work at View International. My role is Group Head of Customer Experience and Insights. So that means I'm obsessed with the customers and the people behind the numbers. I mostly work with our marketing teams in 6 countries, also our operations teams, and use technology to measure the quality of their experience, as we'll talk about. Within View, we feel like what we're fundamentally selling is the chance to switch off and get lost properly in great stories. I have other colleagues within View International in each territory who are experts in cinema technology. They would be the ones to be answering about which tech we buy and the quality, and then they're thinking about maintenance and quality of the technology that we're buying. But where we both overlap in the Venn diagram is that we're all obsessed with the quality of the experience that we're giving to our customers.
Thank you. And Raj?
Yeah, thank you. So, I'm Raj Khalid, Customer Experience Manager of Cineworld and Picturehouse Central. So, customer experience, I'm in charge of anything that the customer touches far and wide, digital and in cinema. Very much looking at how we can improve continually, being reactive, proactive for the customer journey, and working with internal stakeholders across both brands to ensure that the customers are getting the very best service when they receive, and we're actually, more importantly in my role, utilising that feedback and passing it back on to internal stakeholders as to how we can engage better using the technology we have to cast a net rather than a fishing rod, if you can fit into that.
Very nice.
Yes, yeah, I love a little comparison to fishing, but we try to get as
There'll
many
be more.
fish. Yeah, a lot more. But we try to get as many fish as possible and see who wants what.
Excellent. Okay, so we're going to divide this up into 3 rough areas. We've only got 20 minutes, 18 minutes. Yeah, Phil just gave me the sort of. So we're going to look at pre-cinema visit, during the visit and post-visit. But just let's talk about a few introductory points, if you would be so kind. We went for lunch yesterday and we had a little chat about the panel and we were talking about some interesting things. So let's talk about, let's start with, because I think Raj, you mentioned this yesterday, just the evolution of the sort of customer feedback tech over time. So it used to be more of a laborious task, more manual task, whereas that's all improved quite significantly.
Yeah, massively. It's come in huge strides, even in the last 2 years. Due to the pandemic, we've seen a massive shift in digital automation, whereas 10, 15 years, even 5 years ago, a lot of us in the industry would do things like we'd, stand outside screens and ask customers what they thought, and would capture maybe 3 or 4 bits of feedback, and then we'd maybe kind of go around to shops, get posters, especially some of the smaller independents, and even some of the bigger chains like ourselves. We would do things, and it was quite laborious. Whereas now we have systems which can do a lot of the hard work and graft to present to stakeholders, internally, externally, what customers are saying, influence campaigns, and then also at the ground level we can actually get feedback and we can action that quickly, rather than let's spend 5 hours diving through a spreadsheet, have about 3 or 4 meetings and talk about what we want to do, what we might do as well. So there have been massive changes from capturing customer feedback and also capturing and listening to customers from a social media aspect as well. So the product's always developing, and then our knowledge and what we're doing with it is improving massively as well.
And that accountability, so further down the line. Great. Can we just touch on as well, I know we will probably get into this a bit more shortly, but the different types of tech. So we have kind of stuff that is a lot more seen and is a lot more obvious, and then stuff that customers are perhaps not aware of at all. Can you touch on that, Ruth?
Yeah, so the most visible technology to our customers that we're investing in at View International is the recliner seat. So some cinema technology purists might not see that as a technology solution that necessarily needs their skills and expertise, but from a customer point of view, it's probably the most engaging part of the technology because it is so different to a normal seat, and the fact that it is technology that you press the button and it moves, you get it to your personal angle. And then once customers are sat in a recliner seat, they advocate for it because it's so markedly different. And we have memes all across our different cinemas across Europe that have recliner seats where people take photos of their feet up, and that gets shared on social media. So a really obvious part of the technology there. I thought it was really interesting for those who saw the presentations yesterday in the research, when customers in Red C's research were writing love letters to cinemas, they were talking about the technology that's delivering that immersive experience. But I expect not many of the customers writing those love letters would actually understand what the differences between different projectors, even if we told them. So they care that it's great technology that gives them immersive experience, but they don't necessarily know the detail. But they probably don't need to know the detail as long as they believe and experience a great quality experience. So I think there's a lot of knowledge and expertise in our industry that doesn't necessarily need to engage customers. It can just make sure that it's working behind the scenes. And some of the investment in new projectors, for example, maybe for efficiency or energy reasons or for ongoing maintenance and quality, we don't necessarily need to communicate all those features and benefits to customers. So I feel like we should decide with some of these investments where we sit on the scale, whether it is something really obvious and deliberate that we want customers to appreciate and we think can grow our business, that they would choose us over other cinemas, that they would come more often, or if it's at the other end of the scale of just something that means the whole thing works better and can be that invisible tech. And the more I think we decide up front which of those we are, the more we can focus our efforts on doing the right thing and not throwing messages at customers that are not needed, but equally not underestimating the importance of that technology that just makes everything work and delivers seamlessly.
Absolutely, so deciding who you are, what your brand is about. And we have a couple of really interesting kind of viewpoints from you guys, which we will get onto now. So, pre-visit, I'm going to tee you up nicely, Ruth. So, one of Patrick's points, I'm going to give him credit for this. Hi, Patrick. So, pre-visit, when you're doing your communication with your customers, your guests, those people who you're kind of trying to get back in as frequently as possible, you've got your marketing comms, you've got your CRM stuff, that kind of thing. If you're talking to somebody about that, or IMAX, like IMAX is sexy, IMAX is big, people kind of, associate IMAX with the hugeness and the kind of that amazing quality experience. and they may not perceive the kind of, you know, your humble email marketing prior to their visit as in the same way. But you've got some insights into that, Ruth. You disagree with that, don't you?
Well, I guess in terms of what the customers experience, the most important bit of that is the big screen moment when they're experiencing the big screen and that whole immersive quality experience. But it can be easy in our industry to think of the CRM as the data stuff and the algorithm stuff, and that's all well and good, but it's not very interesting. But actually having those platforms in place allows our teams to be more entrepreneurial, to be more creative, because having CRM systems helps you to target the right customers, but it also helps you to experiment, and you can quickly figure out what's working well and what isn't. So, for example, in loads of our emails that are sent out by marketing teams in each of our countries, the call to action button could be click here for more information, or it could be, you know, click here for tickets or ready to buy. But using the technology platforms, our colleagues have experimented with versions of that where that call to action button is related to the film. So join the multiverse as the next step, or experience a new era for Downton. So having something more engaging, having the technology platform to quickly and easily run an experiment and say which one of those works more, which actually led to more customers clicking through and buying tickets, and it is the more creative ones that work. And so technology that could sound quite dull to anyone that isn't in that job actually allows creativity and entrepreneurial spirit.
Yeah, excellent. Raj, can you tell us a bit about your attitude, as in the company's approach to pre-visit? So in the way Ruth was describing you, obviously you guys do it slightly differently, and it's more about the technology that you kind of want to get there up front and centre.
Yeah, I guess quite similar to Ruth, we really stride ourselves in being creative and finding new ways of reaching our customers by looking at the data that we have. Professor once said to me, good data is only as useful as what you do with it. So you can have all the data in the world, but if you're not looking at it and figuring out ways to how you can engage with the customers to actually look at their previous visits and figure out, is this customer more likely to return and be interested in our kind of media that we're going to be putting out to get them to come to the cinema. So what we really do is we look at more of putting across the whole Fillmore narrative much more, and visualising the IMAX experience, the 4DX, the ScreenX experience, and utilising that across multiple channels and platforms. So rather than just it being an email with 1,000 words, we try to use GIFs and memes and different interactions and ways in which we can drive the customers to come in and to relate a lot more to what the experience that they're going to be receiving, which is predominantly technology based. It's a rocking chair with thousands of different aspects to it, but the customer doesn't know that. All they need to see is that 5-10 second gif of the chair moving around and smoke in the air, or the IMAX sign which excites you. And that's what we have seen. We see that feedback, and we see those interactions, social media posts where it's people on the chair sticking their feet up, but it's also people posting in the auditorium when they're walking in saying, we're going to go watch IMAX, we're going to watch something in 4DX. So we try to reflect that.
Like building the experience.
It's the anticipation of that experience, that it's going to be amazing, it's going to be more. That's it. We want them to feel more. So very much that's how we can try to get across that feedback into that pre-visit of driving the customer in, getting them excited, and anticipating what they're going to see.
Great. Let's move on to during the visit. So let's talk about Tesco. Joking. What are your thoughts on having staff on the floor in the cinema? Because obviously with COVID especially, we've moved away from that human contact in the same way for safety and hygiene reasons and convenience and all the rest of it. But yeah, what do we think about still having a human representative somewhere in the building?
Yeah, sure. Well, I guess we are moving more and more towards automation just across the entire industry, no matter what we do, from buying things online to notifications to emails. But with ATMs, for example, the self-service that customers can get, placing orders for food, buying tickets, collecting tickets, there is always going to be that need for human interaction because things unfortunately go wrong. It happens from time to time.
That was the Tesco reference, sorry, when you're doing shopping, but it just didn't come across.
Yeah.
Carry on.
So, I was getting to it. It's going to be like fish. You go to buy some fish and you get to the self-service checkout and then you've got a Red Bull with you. The worst thing in the world is when it goes, bing, are you over 18? And as much as I would like to be under 18, I'm not anymore. So,
what?
I know, it's a job, to be honest. But it's frustrating when it goes wrong and there is nobody around. But so you still need that human interaction to help with technology, and it also puts that warmth and feeling into it. Because I sometimes don't really want to see somebody. I want to come into the cinema and just go straight in, get my ticket, popcorn, whatever. But there are still a lot of customers who do require that assistance, and we can get that feedback from them. And if we are seeing further hours where more people are required, then there's more improvements we need to make to that whole UX journey for our ATMs to say they're just not quite as clear. We need to improve them, because when we first had them, they probably weren't as great as what they are now, and it's a gradual improvement. It's the whole UX journey and the customer service journey that we're looking at as well.
Yeah, I think your point about the whole journey is important. So the majority of our cinemas are still the standard model of go to the counter and buy your retail there. We are experimenting with touchscreens in a small number of cinemas, and the reasons it's a small experiment is because it's tough to change that model and everything's still got to work really well. So we're finding that customers using the touchscreens to order their food and drink, loads of them are feeding back through the systems. We get their feedback and they're answering surveys and telling us it's a nice, simple, quick and easy experience. But a lot of them are saying, I was a bit confused at first, but someone came over to help me. So this is the point about technology needing that human interaction as well, even if it's going right. So it's about when it goes wrong, but it's also just when customers are in a habit, they're normally used to going up to the counter, they have done for years. So you need people around to help that adoption, otherwise you're never going to get the benefits of the technology.
Don't get me wrong, 99 times 100 works perfectly, but at one time it is great just to have that human interaction, just to say, sorry, use another service, go to concessions, and also then the ability, when it does go wrong, like I said, only 1 out of 100, don't have a word for it, by the way. But you want that ability to be able to report it as well. We want the ability to have that technology which is hidden, so not just from the customer, but also from colleagues. So we can have those quick reports and we can see in our central IT offices, machine 1 is down, machine 2 is down, how quickly can we restart them remotely as well. So there's a lot more behind it that also colleagues and customers don't see, so how we can quickly restart and quickly maintain them, deploy updates and so forth.
So what about any tech that guests may be completely unaware of during a visit? I guess, like you were saying about things going wrong when it does, because it's it's human circumstance. But I guess it's that thing of you don't until it goes wrong. So as in it should just kind of smoothly sail along. That doesn't articulate that well.
No, I know what you're getting at. Yeah, so as we heard in the research yesterday, when people were writing love letters to cinema, they talked about the immersive technology of the projection and the sound and things. But when we read the comments of customers who are feeding back on their visit, they rarely mention that stuff, unless it's gone wrong. Yeah. So it's kind of an assumption that it's going to be a great quality experience, and we only hear them talk about the technology when it's going wrong. Apart from a few things that do stand out to customers, and some customers are more knowledgeable than others. So, for example, at View we have Dolby Atmos in 2 of the screens at View West End on Leicester Square. And so some customers...
reasons, and I'm not going to start listing technical requirements because there's more people here far more qualified who can call me out, but they go because they know what they're going to get, and then the same for the 4DX customers and sort of our proposition customers who go purely for that. They go because they know there's power behind it and technology behind it, which is really driving it. So there's recognition and then there's knowledge, and there's a bit of a split, but we cover that with how we interact with the customers and how we can let them know that what is there and what it is that they want, really.
Yeah, and for some of those customers who don't necessarily understand the features or benefits, sometimes you might just want to mention that technology because it's shorthand for quality. So I may not know what it is, but the fact that you're
synonymous with it.
Yeah, it's the recognition.
Not even synonymous, it's more just the fact that you've chosen to tell me it's laser projectors makes me think that you must be telling me that for a reason, therefore it must be better quality. And the kind of implication is you've taken care over that cinema, you've invested in it, there's experts behind it. So whether I personally understand lasers or not, the fact that you're calling it out sometimes can just kind of help elevate it if you're the customers down the end of the scale who don't have that same level of knowledge.
We're very much, I think, I can't speak for the entire industry, but very much for Picturehouse and Cinema, we've moved away from going into novels almost when we try to explain to customers in emails or advertising as to what exactly is they're getting. It very much has now just become a visualisation of what you're going to get. It's going to be amazing. It's going to be a big screen experience rather than, oh, it's going to have this and that standard quality. The pixels are going to be... We've moved away from that. It's more very much now of the recognition of what you're going to get with that brand and that type of big screen experience.
Yeah, and I think if there are any technology providers in the room who think they have got a great customer benefit, you know, I'd love to hear how you would articulate that to customers, and it could be something we elevate more, but I don't think you necessarily have to do that.
Yeah, clocked. Okay, so we're going to move on to post-visit. So I think we've probably got a bit more to say about this, because this is obviously where you guys really get stuck in. So why don't we start, let's just talk through roughly kind of what each of you at your respective companies do as part of that. You know, your guest has been, they've left, how you follow up with them. So Raj, do you want to...
Yeah, so most of our customers who book online will receive emails asking them to rate their visit, 2 simple questions, and then we have a pre-text comment box, and that comment box is invaluable to us. We have a taxonomy which can dive into exactly what it is they're talking about, the good, the bad and the neutral. So we tend to focus on, we call them buckets of feedback, often those buckets are smaller buckets, and then those buckets will relate to something important like toilets or sound, or nachos, whatever it may be, and we can filter that down even more, get really granular, and from that we can focus and we can discuss with departments on how we can improve that experience, and the cinemas can have access to that. So every cinema has a dashboard which they can look at all the feedback that comes in, and they can make that choice as to what is it you want to focus on this week. And that is really invaluable for them to say, this is where we're falling down, and this is where we can improve, this is where we can get the customers to really enjoy that experience.
So that's accessible to all the cinemas, so the relevant cinemas?
All the cinemas and many stakeholders for our head office as well, and we can use that to present to board members, etc., internal companies, and we can also utilise that feedback to make a business case to say we need to spend a bit more money and SeaWorld here, Picturehouse there, and this is what we need to do to improve the admissions and so forth. It's always that extra business cases. Ones and zeros help, but it's always what the customer is actually talking about when you have it down in paper. And it's, in maths, it's very, very powerful. And it helps actually swing the pendulum in the favour of people who actually want something done, which are the customers.
Yeah, we have a similar process. So we email a survey the next day to customers asking them to give us their feedback. And then because that's the technology, you're having that online platform just running in the background all the time, means it's this ongoing feedback mechanism, and we have some questions at the end which are optional when we've answered all the questions that the ops team need, like were the staff friendly and helpful, and was it clean and tidy on your visit, were you happy with your seat location and your view. At the end there's some extra questions so we can profile, was this your first visit back, did you spend more than you normally do on retail. So it's this massive source of insight that's really important to my job, that we're not having to invest in new research all the time, it just keeps running. So that's one benefit of the technology, that all of that is just running. And then the second benefit, like with Raj, we have the online platform where different users log in at different levels. And then the provider that we're working with also has modules like the coaching module. So for an individual cinema manager, the data is sorted so that it identifies which of the key drivers your cinema is down on relative to your peers. You choose from a drop-down box of some actions that have been agreed with regional managers, and then that gets fed to their regional manager. So within the technology platform, it's kind of helping with those processes.
Just sanitise it and sort it and...
Yeah, and it's only possible at scale because of the technology. But as Raj was saying, the important bit is the process that goes around it, that you've then got the data sorted and you can have the decent conversations to drive improvements rather than wasting so much time sorting through data.
Piles of paper or spreadsheets.
Yeah. So, like I touched on before, technology has come on so far, the products we have is great. And if we think back 12 years or so, if we had, or even 5-10 years, and if we had what we had then, we could have made actionable changes, for example, for Avatar. If we had the products we had back then, maybe the 3D revolution would have lasted a lot longer, and we would have had a bit more feedback which we could have actioned with distributors and exhibitors. We could all work together a lot closer to prolong that and to provide better quality for customers, because the feedback that we kind of have anecdotally now is that it wasn't quite to the level that we wanted, and without having that in mass data, there was no way we could really have that conversation to get buy-in for everybody, really.
Okay, so nice segue there into 3D. There is a panel on 3D in more detail, so we won't tread on too many toes. I did tell Ruth that to get onto the 3D segment, I would just shout 3D at her. 3D, Ruth!
I think I preempted you a bit there, but...
Yeah, you saved her.
So we were looking ahead in the agenda, and obviously there's a really important session about preparing your technology for a great 3D experience, we're interested in preparing your customers for a great 3D experience. So some of them won't have experienced 3D in the cinema ever, so we need to help illustrate how amazing that's going to be. And of course, it's one of those amazing differentiators versus what you could experience at home. Also within the feedback surveys that we've had already a review from a survey that we ran in November, the interest in 3D coming up is quite high amongst teenagers and families, but there's a dip in the sort of older end of the younger of the adults, around 20s, 30s, who may have experienced bad 3D at the tail end of the last peak. And so we need to reinvigorate their interest. So while the session this afternoon is going to be really important for getting your technology warmed up, we need to warm our customers up. And so, for example, at View, we've gone on sale with Doctor Strange in 3D. We expect the demand will be slow at first, but it's almost a dress rehearsal to start engaging customers so we can really maximise that peak that's coming with Avatar 2. And hopefully, as Roger says, sustain it better because we've got these mechanisms to be feeding back as to which customers are enjoying 3D more, which cinemas are operating 3D really well, which films the 3D experience is delivering on and which isn't. So let's hopefully sustain that demand for that amazing experience by delivering the quality.
Yeah, and it's closing that feedback loop that we didn't have when Avatar originally came out because we had other films that came out. We didn't quite know what to do. Whereas now we have that feedback, we can loop it around back to our emails and to our campaigns to suggest this is what's working, this is what we need to maybe tweak a little bit more, this is maybe what we need to explain a bit more in terms of 3D. Do we need to explain to customers actually what 3D is? Because some, Ruth has said, have just never been to the cinema to watch 3D. It's not available at home, it's been sparsely available in cinemas, and we need to get customers ready to know this is what they need to get. You know, you need to get in a bit early, you need to make sure you've got 3D glasses, so you don't sit through the trailers and then the VVSC certificate comes up and then you're like, hang on, what? So it's all of these things that we need to do to prepare our customers, but importantly, the technology in cinemas as well. We need to do that dress rehearsal, that the screen's working correctly, we have enough 3D glasses, the logistics of all that come through with it as well. You know, we're forecasting how many glasses we'd need and how many screenings we're going to need from 2D to 3D. But it's utilising all that feedback with Doctor Strange. It's a great opportunity to do that this year and then continue it, because the last 3D film that we put on in wide release was Spider-Man No Way Home. So it's going to be nearly a year until the big film comes out. And will there be an appetite for Doctor Strange for 3D? I hope so, but it's all about that dress rehearsal and then utilising that feedback to know that we are doing a good job and it is working and customers are importantly enjoying it, sharing their experience and really utilising that.
Oh, Sandy's hovering. She likes a good old hover. Yeah, okay, cool. Well, I think that's a good place to leave it. So thank you both very much. Was going to say something, it's completely gone. Any questions, Sandy?
We do have some questions. A couple of them are kind of on the same vein. We have a question which says, how would you get the advantage of a film being shown in a high frame rate or high dynamic range across to your customers? And I guess that means not just those two formats, it means a different format as opposed to an ordinary screening. So how would you get that across to customers to entice them in?
Yeah, I think today I wouldn't, because I don't know what's better about that. So if any experts can explain to me and to customers why that is a better experience, then let's talk about how we can get that down into a succinct message that is meaningful. As Raj says, it's often better to illustrate what that means, but that gets really clunky outside of the cinema experience. So at the moment, I don't know that the customer benefit is really there apart from the people who are already experts in it. So there will be some cinephiles who understand that, and so maybe it becomes a filter on our film pages that we can show customers which films they can choose to watch in a high frame rate or another format. But as it stands today, I don't see our marketing teams doing much with that unless someone in the industry wants to help us with that.
It's very much trial and error, I think, with that one. Yeah, I mean, how can you explain that within 5-6 words? It's going to be a bit tricky because we have to be careful not to generalise that the public know as much as we do. Most of them do, but there's a large percentage who will be like, what are they talking about and why do I want to go see it that way? Trial and error can just be that we maybe put in some screenings and we can then effectively see what the pickup is and what the feedback is, but it would be a very similar to Ruth. I wouldn't rush and jump to do it unless I'm told to be honest.
Okay, thank you ever so much, guys. That was wonderful and lovely to catch up with you guys. Cheers. And just a shameless plug, I haven't even asked if I'm allowed to do this, but CJ Cinema Summit tomorrow is live from BAFTA, from the newly refurbed building, so do join us. Many thanks.
Helen, Ruth, and Raj, thank you very much. Our last session before the interval focuses on event cinema, and specifically ensuring that live content is presented as well as it possibly can be. Back in 2019, which actually sounds like yesterday, the CTC team ticked off, and I didn't have any of that stuff in the little bottles either. The CTC team kicked off a project to provide a complete set of broadcast tests, and today, at One Community Day, we're delighted to showcase these for the very first time. I'm absolutely delighted to welcome my fellow CTC colleagues, Paul Wilmot from Saffron Screen, Ronnie Clark from Event Cinema, and David Pope from Music Screen, to provide some perspective on the importance of this new content and unveil it for the very first time.
Hi everyone, Sandy actually did my job, that's what I was coming on the stage to say. No, yeah, I think you can stand here. I mean, I think as we sort of touched upon yesterday, and, and of course today, event cinema is becoming a kind of a bigger part of cinema programming, and as we know, the allure of event cinema from back in the day was the live and live delivery of events. But I think one of the things that we've also kind of seen, and I'm sure Bruce, you probably get a lot of feedback on this, is like when live goes wrong, it can be quite disastrous, and particularly for the customer, that experience is not an experience we want them to walk away with. So the idea of these test materials that have been brought together over the last couple of years, I mean, sadly, I don't have the answers to everything, guys. I know a lot, but these guys here know more than I do to be able to talk you through these test materials. But we really hope this is something that will be useful for all content providers, or indeed anybody who wants to kind of broadcast out a live event, to help you make sure that your setup is correct and perfect for your audiences coming in. And indeed, on top of that, for exhibitors as well, for you to use them, and we really want you to encourage your staff to use them. So Paul, I'm going to hand over to you first to talk you through from the exhibitor point of view, and then David will come up as well and talk about from a distributor point of view.
Good afternoon, everybody. Paul Wilmot from Saffron Screen. I joined Saffron Screen when we opened 16 years ago. In 2011, we did our first live event. Oh, what a disaster that was. Absolute disaster. I won't go into it because it will take me too long, so we'll skip forward. I'm still doing live event sessions at our cinema. It still scares the hell out of me at times. So you've got 200 people in front of you, you're standing in the projection room, and you're pressing the button and nothing happens. Why? It's an interesting question. We do all the tests. Hopefully you all know that you're supposed to do your test normally a week before the live event, and then one on the day of the live event. And they give me some confidence. They don't give me complete confidence, but they give me some confidence that the thing's going to work. If it works in the test, then the chances are it's going to work for the live event. One of the big things that I've come across is that before every live event, you find that the test material isn't always the same. Now, I don't know about you, but I like consistency. I like to know what tests I'm going to get, so I know what the results should be. And I find this very frustrating that some of the tests they're quite good, and then the next live event I show, the test just doesn't have the same kind of content. A test package contains all sorts of tests. It's not just one test. There's obviously a lot of different tests. And one of the things that we were looking at in the CTC is to come up with a test package that really was best practice. So it had all the kind of tests that I would want to see and that a lot of other people would want to see. So I'll give you an example. lip sync. I don't know how many of you actually work in a projection room or actually do physical screenings. Okay, quite a few. And do you all use the test materials? Do you all do the testing? Mostly? Okay, that's good. In the early days, I used to find that lip sync was always the issue, because it wasn't necessarily 100% on. Now, those of you who are familiar with the test probably have seen a lot of what are called blip tests. So you have either a round circle of like LEDs going round, and when it hits the top one, you get a blip. And that's when everything's in sync. And if it blips when it's slightly off to one side or the other side, then it's not in sync. But that's fine. Except I could never tell when it was like 2 or 3 either side. What's the point of the test in that case? I like to see a headshot and someone speaking, because I'm quite sensitive to lip sync being out of sync. And some people are, some people aren't. But when I can see somebody talking, I know whether that's in sync or not. So I like to see a headshot of somebody talking. And some tests used to have that, some didn't. What we've done is taken what I would consider to be the best options and have both. So what you'll see later on in this test package, and it's fantastic that we're actually showing this today for the very first time, you'll see a series of tests that hopefully will be an improvement upon what you currently get. And if we get our act together with the distributors, this will be in front of most live event broadcasts. There's a good reason why we're doing it now. First of all, we did start this 3 or 4 years ago actually, so this is like it's finally happened, but there's a good reason for doing it now. In particular, as a lot of you will know, there's been in the UK a shift from satellite broadcast to IP broadcast delivery. And so that has necessitated changes in equipment. So you may well be using your Landsat now via IP, or you may have decided, like myself, because we have really rubbish broadband, that we're going to stick with satellite, in which case we've got in some new equipment. Now, I guess most of you, technical-wise, will know if you start putting in new equipment, things don't necessarily always work first time round. So being able to do some really good tests now, with all this new stuff in place, is going to be very advantageous. The other aspect to the tests that we've put here is we're quite aware that an awful lot of cinemas don't necessarily have technical people actually there to do the test. So what you will see in the test is a good explanation of each test as we go through it, which is aimed not just at technical people, but at non-technical people as well, at sort of managerial level maybe. So that it's a much broader scope really, that people can use these tests and actually come away with hopefully a good feeling that the whole thing's going to work on the day, but if not, what to go and do about it. I think that's it as far as I can see. From my point of view, from an exhibitor's point of view, it's test, 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 and keep testing. And if you've got the best test package available, that is the best you're going to get. I'm hopeful that my slightly nervousness in doing live events will just go down a notch or two with these tests. I hope so, because we've spent an awful lot of time putting this test package together. There's so many people involved, and David's going to mention some of them. It might look quite simple to you, but I can assure you there's a huge amount of work that's gone into it. So I'm going to hand over to David to give you a distributor's point of view.
Thank you very much, Paul. That's really interesting, because I think it kind of indicates that we both started into this journey more or less the same time. And, you know, I've got a few grey hairs from it, and I can see that you've lost some of your hair. So yeah, it can be very exciting, but it's very stressful as well, and that's really one of the reasons we've set off into this, to make it a little bit more predictable. Now, I need to tell you a little bit about myself, just to explain how and why I got involved in this exciting project. Because it actually goes back 9 years, and that's when I first noticed that event cinema might actually need some help on the technical side. So I'm David Pope, founder director of Music Screen. I've been a member of the CTC for over 10 years now, and I'm also a member of the Cinema and Television Veterans Association, recognising my 30 years in the cinema industry. So my background is in sound, and for many years I worked on the engineering side of the business, supplying sound equipment to film studios and then to cinemas. So once the whole cinema chain went digital, I moved into content distribution with Music Screen. Our first gig was a live by satellite event in 2013, the Best of Keen live from Berlin, and it went to 300 cinemas across the UK. Now, while I was in Berlin watching the live performance, my colleagues back in the UK were watching the event in their local cinema. They started reporting back that the picture didn't look like HD and the sound was lacking in bass. But nevertheless, the fans really enjoyed the event, and we didn't get any negative reports back from the event at all. However, I wanted to investigate my colleagues' feedback. So as soon as I got back to the UK, I had a DCP created from the live stream source. And I found the picture looked great, it was certainly HD, and the sound was 5.1 with excellent bass. So after this, I decided to monitor other distributors' live by satellite events. And without mentioning any particular productions, I can tell you quite a few of them had exactly the same problems encountered at Music Screen. Sometimes it was a fuzzy picture and pale colours, and one of them I checked later on Blu-ray, and it was perfect, beautiful, pin sharp and vibrant colours. So I concluded there was definitely some issues with the satellite setup in some locations. So along with my colleagues at the CTC, we decided to start a working group a few years back to investigate this. And the conclusion of that work is this excellent test loop we can show you today. Now, many of my colleagues in the CTC helped on this project, as Paul mentioned, but I believe special mention should be made of certain individuals who put a huge amount of hours into it, and without whose help we wouldn't be showing you this today. So, firstly, John Dowsland of Dolby, who stepped in a couple of years ago to project managers, all with frame-accurate attention to detail, as is the way with John. And then Mike Denner at ex-Dolby and now running Festival Cinema Services. Mike created all the graphics used in the test loop. Malcolm Ellison and Tom Witowski of Twickenham Film Studios, who did a fantastic job of editing the rough cut video into the finished product. And finally, Helen Budge, or Booge as she wanted to be called today, who narrates the test loop for us, but manages to find the perfect balance of being informative but entertaining at the same time. I've watched this test loop at least 20 times, and I'm still smiling at Helen's jokes, and I'm sure you will too. So without further ado, let's run the test loop. It's about 6 minutes, so strap your seats in and away we go. And we'll be happy to answer your questions afterwards. Thank you very much.
Oh, hello. I didn't see you there. I'm Helen Budge. A big thanks for joining me and welcome to the cinema technology communities in Cinema Check. We're going to show you a series of sound and picture tests accompanied by my excellent narration so that you can check the setup of the cinema you are in. If you see or hear anything that does... Take a photo of the screen at that point and make sure you pass your notes and photos to your technical or site manager, who will very soon become your best friend. You've already been watching one of our first checks, the lip sync check. How clever and sneaky of us. Did it look like my lips were in sync with the words? If it doesn't, the sound could be too early or too late. The next check is the pip and flash test. Does the screen flash at the same time as the pip? Are the pip and flash at the exact same time? Or do you have that sinking feeling? I am so sorry. Our next check involves listening to all of the speakers in your cinema. For this, you will need to be seated in what's called the reference listening position. This is in the middle of the seating area at a point 2/3 of the distance to the rear wall of the auditorium, or here. You will now hear pink noise move from the left to the right of the screen. Who knew noise could be pink? I certainly didn't. It will then rotate clockwise around the whole room. Next, you'll hear the low frequency channel. Now we've tested the sound, we are going to test the picture. And the first thing we're going to look at is focus. Look at the 5 square grids. The horizontal and vertical lines in each of the 5 grids should all be of equal length and equal sharpness. If the centre grid is sharp, but one or more of the corner grids is not, there is a focusing problem that will need to be corrected by a projection engineer. The convergence check is next. Look at the red, green and blue lines. They should all be aligned end to end and of equal length. And now here's a full screen of the same lines. If any are offset, this indicates a convergence problem. Our next section looks at framing. And for this, we're going to put up a series of coloured outlines around the edge of the screen. Here's the first one. In an ideal setup, you should be able to see a green line around the edge of the screen. This indicates the optimal framing for a wide screen broadcast. Here is the second outline in yellow and slightly smaller. If you can see yellow and or green around the edge of the screen, then your framing is A-OK. And here is the third outline in red. If any of the red touches the side of the screen, you are in danger of losing some picture. It's okay to lose some of the yellow line due to horizontal or vertical keystone of the picture. In some cases, some of the red border may also be obscured, but the edge of the screen should never go beyond the red area or valuable picture information can be lost. Next, we are going to look at shapes on the screen and sadly not on the dance floor. They should appear as a perfect circle within a perfect square. Do the shapes look correct? Can you see a perfect circle within a perfect square? And our final section is checking for colours. A red, green and blue circle will appear in turn. Do the circles look correct and of the same size? If anything looked odd or sounded strange, then please make sure to pass your notes and photos to your technical or site manager for further investigation. For more on the checks you have seen, visit cinema-technology.com. Bye-bye.
It's better than you thought, wasn't it? We can make everything interesting. We are massively running over time, but I'm hoping we can kind of take a couple of questions. I'm sure you're all dying to know, how do you get your hands on these? So as you would have seen, that's a DCP version that we have created, which can be used for training and deployment to staff. We'll also create an MP4 version. The main idea of it is that it will be a broadcasted piece, and again, my next step of the journey of this will be to kind of presenting this all to all of the content providers on the Event Cinema side. We know some will already have their own test materials, but as you can see, what we want to do is bring some consistency and have some training material that covers all the areas relevant for live broadcasting of events. The materials are not yet live, but they will be available to CTC members and they're up on the website. And I'm sure once we've recovered from this event, we'll be sending out more information via the CTC newsletter on how you can access them. There's been two questions that have come in. One of them I think actually just requires a whole other session, and around sound levels for live events, which is something that always comes up. For me, I mean, David, Paul, I don't know if you want to sort of cover anything off on this one quickly. And it's saying, obviously the test materials are great, but again, it's kind of fixing those things when things go wrong during the actual live event itself, particularly regarding sound levels. Is there anything we can do in creating some sort of standards around sound levels? And the short answer, guys, is no. I mean, and again, there are sort of variations as well between sort of broadcasting standards as well as the standards that we have in cinemas. It's something we've discussed. I think, David, is there anything else you want to add in on that? But it probably requires a longer conversation.
It could do. That's quite right about sound levels, because they are different on a DCP to a broadcast event. But I think the main thing, one of the things that we've found is many of the broadcasters will want to add their own demonstration material to give an idea of what content they're putting through. And with regular movies, the reference point is always the dialogue. You know the dialogue should be about 85, and that's it. But in truth, what always happens is the material is adjusted to suit the audience. And I've been at many events where I'm really enjoying it. Somebody in the audience complains, and the next half, I think this was Tosca actually, a couple of years ago, and it got turned down by 5 dBs, just because one person in the audience said it was too loud. And so the prime bit of the opera singer doing her diva bit and the most beautiful song she's going to sing gets turned down. So I lost the enjoyment of it because of that. And so I think the reference point is really important. It's something we can, there's a place on our website where you can go and get more information about that. But it's a good question, because there is a difference between DCP and broadcast audio. Thank you.
Yeah, I just wanted to say, as a real projectionist, going back even to the 35mm days, we always went out into the auditorium and listened to the start of the film to actually decide whether it was at the right volume or not. And we still do it today with DCPs, so there's no reason why we shouldn't do it, and we do it with live events as well. I just think, I know you can't all do it in your cinemas, but if you're really into quality and pleasing your customers as well, then I think it's quite a vital thing to do, is actually use your own ears and listen to it.
Thanks, Paul. I just thought, is there any other quick questions we want to take from the audience before we go to break, if people haven't clicked through on the Slido? Put your hands up now. No. Oh. Not just yet.
You done?
Done.
Ronja? Paul, thank you very much. Just before we pause for a break, and because we're overrunning so much, we're going to squeeze it down a bit because obviously we can't all be here at midnight. So if you could get back here by 10:02, that would be fabulous. We are going to treat you all live stream, and we've decided to share it with you. So, to play us out the interval and to set the tone for the second half of One Community Day, here's a special message from Real D.
Let me take you back to 2009, before I used lockdown to drink too much wine. When saying COVID meant nothing at all. We just had the UKCA Christmas Ball. To our cinema screens came something brand new. Fox launched a movie about people of blue. We sat and we watched. Some of us cried. What we saw in that film made our mouths open wide. The audience left with their faces a grin. Those Flying Navi, a huge box office win. A new era brought forth by Lightstorm and Co. Something the streamers would struggle to show. It sold more tickets than any before. It launched a new format with 3Ds, not 4. And now a new sequel at the end of this year. So order your glasses, it soon will be here. Check your Real D systems, please make sure they work. We'll all be so busy, tech to box office clerk. James Cameron is back. And 3D is too. Get ready, my friends, for Avatar 2.
I am Espedio Supra, a Red Dot award-winning and major Hollywood studios approved DCI-compliant cinema laser projector, perfect for boothless mini theaters, designed for quick and easy installation without a hush box or an exhaust fan. I am a work of art. I received the prestigious 2020 Red Dot Award based on my sophisticated technical features. The jury of Red Dot Award said I open up areas where professional projection had not been possible before. I am uniquely compact. My small form factor is achieved with GDC's multifunctional all-in-one board, which integrates the DCI-compliant media server, integrated cinema processor, ICP, and DMD formatter board. I am lightweight, yet packed with high-tech features. I am quiet, So quiet that you can even install me right in the middle of an auditorium without anyone noticing me. I am cost efficient. Possibly the lowest total cost of ownership for a Hollywood Studios DCI approved laser projector. Simply hang me inside the auditorium without any exhaust fan and hush box. Easy to maintain and operate. Option to customize my magnetic cover to match your ceiling decor or add your company logo. I am an RGB Plus laser phosphor projector featuring the world's leading ALPD 4.0 technology. My light engine and lens are designed with IP5X level of dust-proof protection with a laser lifetime up to 30,000 hours of operation. I project a bright image of up to 6 meters wide on commercial cinema screens and 270-inch diagonal for home theaters, yachts, conference rooms, and more. I support 3D playback with more than 30% light efficiency, nearly twice the brightness of many existing 3D projection systems. I am powerful. I'm packed with power by GDC all-in-one board and diskless Cinecache memory. Content ingest and playback can be performed concurrently without local hard drive storage. The fastest ingest of new content during playback. Supporting cinema on-demand application with GDC's Cinema Automation 2.0 that enables the storage and playback of thousands of movies. Built-in digital cinema audio processor will be available as an option. You no longer need an external cinema audio processor to play back movie titles in uncompressed audio tracks, reproducing the most accurate sound possible. I am smart. Supra Command Center intuitive web-based control UI is accessible via the built-in Wi-Fi with a desktop, a laptop, or a tablet. I am Espedio Supra, ideal for mini theaters and non-traditional exhibition options in hotels, screening rooms, and yachts. I am the best possible projection system from renowned technologists, GDC, Appotronics, and Texas Instruments.
Cinema has the power to change lives. MediCinema is a charity with one goal: to bring the transformative power of cinema into hospitals across the country, to give those in long-term care and their families the relief they need, to take children like Sienna and transform them into a superhero, a dragon, a Viking, to give them the precious chance to walk in someone else's shoes, to forget their condition, their treatment, their reality. Support MediCinema today. It really means the world to those who need it the most.
was the last quarter. The Jaguars were getting back into the game. And I got the ball outside the D. As the ball left my hands, I was thinking that I've never scored a three-pointer before. It went in and the crowd went wild. Basketball's my main sport, what I like doing, because I actually get to play with people who are disabled like me. I was born with scoliosis and arthrogryposis. When I was born, my spine wasn't straight. The movement in my joints are limited. I've had 5 operations on my hands to straighten them out. Without my wheelchair, I would be struggling. Probably wouldn't do nothing without a chair, really. My new chair, what Variety gave me, is perfectly fitted for me. I didn't know I could go as fast as I can. It's given me a step closer to my dream, to play basketball professionally. Whatever you work for, you hopefully will get.
Do we just need some...
I can just click that off now, can't I? Or is that...
I'm not sure if they're running it off of...
Yeah, if you go up to the stand, Bill.
Yeah.
Welcome back, everyone. We hope you're all suitably refreshed and ready for the second half. As we just saw before the break, Avatar 2 is finally on the horizon, but with comparatively little 3D content available to cinemas over recent years, How ready are venues for 3D revival? What are the challenges, opportunities, and when should we be planning to start? I know there was discussions this morning from Universal saying that they were going to start really early and get people aware. But to answer maybe all these questions, we have a fantastic panel moderated by Adam MacDonald from GDC Technology and also CTC Governor. Adam will be joined on stage by Mark Kendall from Sharp NEC Displays and CTC, Tony Dilly from Harkness Screens, and Bobby Andrews, and Julia Vinokurova from Real D. So if you'd like to come on stage.
We've got spare seats.
Move up. That's it.
That works. Good afternoon. Can I just say, first of all, on behalf of everybody here, thank you to Richard, who thanks everybody thanklessly all the time, but doesn't get thanked enough. So, thank you, Richard, for all the hard work. So 3D. It's recognised 3D isn't right for every film, sorry to say, or every screen or every site. But when it's done well, it offers a truly fantastic experience when it's embraced by directors and producers, and obviously that drives incremental revenue, which everybody should be interested in. I think before the pandemic, we were about 40% 3D screens in the UK-ish as a ratio. So it's a really important part of the business for many of us. The tipping point, which was mentioned earlier, was Avatar, a little film that came out in 2009. You might have heard of it. Earning nearly $3 billion and still is a top 5 all-time box office film. Subsequent highlights include Life of Pi, Gravity and Hugo. And I'm informed there's a very strong slate in 22 coming up with Doctor Strange, Multiverse of Madness, Jurassic World Dominion and potentially some others. And another small film coming out called Avatar 2, which I hear is coming out in 3D and every possible format you can think of that is in the world and yet to be discovered in the world potentially. So I've got a panel here to talk to us today about how we can help you to present 3D better, to get the best out of the equipment you've got, think about how you might need to improve equipment you've got in time for Avatar and other films. So I'll let you guys introduce yourself one by one because you can do it better than I can. Starting to my left with Tony Dilly.
Tony Dilly. Tony Dilly, SVP Sales for Harkness Screens.
Bobby Andrews, VP of Commercial and Marketing for Real D EMEA.
Mark Kendall, I'm the Sales Manager for Sharp NEC.
My name is Julia Vinokurova, I do operations in Europe for Real D.
Thank you all. So the first question I've got for everybody, but I think particularly for the vendors, is how has 3D technology evolved since the first Avatar film, and how much of that evolution was based on learnings from that time? So, Tony, if you want to kick off on that one.
Right. It's off again. It's on. You're on. Right.
You're on.
After Avatar, and it was led by Real D. There was a big sea change in cinema screens, in the 3D screens. They came up with a screen they called premium white technology, which caused us as screen makers a lot of problems because a lot of the exhibitors just decided it was a white screen. It wasn't. It's different paint, different flake, and it made the screen look whiter. Whereas the old-fashioned screens, everything looked grey. The contrast wasn't as good. And very expensive, and we couldn't sell it to everybody, so Harkness and other companies developed their own screens, and that was the major changing point after Avatar. Wider 3D, more light to the edges of the screen, and even in 2D you got a lot less of a hotspot, so you were looking at better pictures right the way through, and that was the biggest change to me.
I mean, I'm going to let Julia talk about the tech side of it, a bit terrified eyes. But just from the content perspective, I think there's one of the biggest changes that could that will affect the audience from their experiences. We all know that there were some pretty poor post-conversion films that were released after Avatar to cash in on the trend of the 3D at the time, and that probably, well, it did have a really huge effect, detrimental effect, on the audience and their expectation of what 3D was. We talk to stereo supervisors all the time, and they're the guys that actually make the movies. There's a guy called Chris Parks, and he did the conversion, the 3D conversion on Gravity. He did it on Fantastic Beasts, the last 2 films, and on Pan, and a load of other 3D films, and the latest James Bond film, which, funnily enough, was 3D in every market apart from in the UK. And he talks about there being 3 phases of 3D. The first phase was Avatar, essentially, and that was, the proof of concept that 3D, you could sit through a 3-hour film watching 3D, and the audiences could enjoy that and experience that, and it'd be a good thing for them, and that was a positive. But then the second wave was more of the artistic elements of that. How can they help influence the storytelling of the narrative? So he talks about in Gravity, for example, how when they were in space, the 3D was a lot flatter. When they were inside the spaceship, it was actually 5 times deeper 3D. And they did that to create this like womb safety-like environment. So it can add and help. It's an artistic tool. And this third phase is now what's coming next, which will be, Avatar 2, and hopefully all the films that follow that and the lessons that they learn. I don't know what Avatar 2 will look like on the screen. I know it will look amazing. That's all I can tell you. If it's projected properly, the right technological, done in the right way, it will look fantastic. We know that. And it's then, how can we then learn from that and build on that for the following films?
Yeah, we talked about that last night. It isn't just the technology on the exhibition side, actually it's the production, the post-production, which people haven't seen the progress in that for a long time, and I hear Avatar is something else, really, from screens, it's supposed to be stunning. Julia, have you got any thoughts on that as well, the 3D tech?
Yeah, I think the whole kind of projection infrastructure kind of changed. So the systems, so our systems, 3D systems, became more brighter, more efficient. Giving more light. The glasses became more efficient as well. And on the projector side, we've got laser projectors with obviously more brightness, more efficiency as well. On the screen side, we've got a variety of screen technology, including RealD Ultimate Screen, which is very high stereo contrast, which basically makes the 3D look greater on a big screen, but 2D as well. So yeah, I think kind of a lot of changes since Avatar, to work with the new technology on the production side of things.
Yeah.
Just from a project point of view, Julia already touched on it a little bit in terms of since the last 3D phase, we've obviously seen all manufacturers introducing laser technology, and laser technology gives you much more flexibility than xenon technology ever used to. So essentially it means that you can get more brightness, but you don't need to use a different projector. So you can use the same projector and then boost the light with laser technology to be able to get the maximum light. And I think that's one of the things where we suffered, where some of the content was still good, but exhibitors didn't have the flexibility to be able to show sufficient light for good 3D. Now the technology is out there to be able to do that.
Yeah, and like we said earlier as well, it isn't just the 3D technology that's progressed, it's everything around it, which for all presentations is better. Which comes on to question 2, Mark, just staying with you. Given the dormancy of much 3D equipment, what are the potential issues exhibitors will face, and what tests can be carried out to check everything is working as it should?
Yeah, I think one of the obvious things is to make sure that you can get sufficient light out of your projector for with your 3D system. We're seeing a number of Xenon products out there in the marketplace, but we've also got a lot of new laser technology products out there. Plan. If you're looking for new technology and new products, then definitely you need to be planning now for Avatar. But if you don't have that budget or that facility, then certainly look at the technology that you do have and see how you can improve that. And a little plug that is still relevant. There's a white paper that we produced with the CTC called Restoring Performance for Series 1 and Series 2 digital projectors. Have a look at that. That's online, and it will certainly give you some very good indications as to what you can do with or without a budget to be able to improve the performance of your projector. And obviously then get better light on the screen, which will help with 3D.
Yeah, and same question then, I guess, to Bobby and Julia from a 3D equipment specifically. You know, what issues are you seeing people facing now, or problems they're having with equipment?
So I think the issues will depend on, you know, whether you have been, or the cinema have been using the equipment or not. Like any mechanism, you know, to work properly, it has to be in use. And I think that what we are seeing, and I think what you know, cinemas will kind of face, is that they might switch their equipment on and find that, you know, the power supply died. That's a very common kind of, you know, failure that we experience. Or there is a very high risk and probability that the settings from the projector will go, you know, from the projector. The alignment, you know, basically the system, the 3D system will be misaligned, and you know, the things like color correction. Definitely, if it hasn't been used for a long time, it's probably not working properly. So. I think CTC, you know, is working on the paper, the white paper, and there will be tests. So, you know, that we at Real D shared that help you to check on the system, the 3D system polarity. You know, that you're kind of, it's not inverted. You can check your port windows, which is very important because, you know, there are tempered glass or heat-treated glass, then, you know, will definitely give ghosting. So you have this DCP test, which will allow you to test your window performance. And yeah, so glasses as well is a very kind of important element. And I think, you know, facing all these challenges, it's better to kind of start testing now. I think, you know, with the event cinema, so, you know, they were saying about testing, and I think that's what we think, you know, needs to happen with 3D technology. So not waiting until the last minute, but, you know, use this opportunity to test now and just solve your issues now.
Yeah, the whole, you know, technological infrastructure that makes up the 3D, the stereo contrast ratio, which is the amount of light that appears in the wrong guy, which is a negative term, but it's the higher the stereo contrast, the better the 3D essentially. And it's everything in the auditorium. You know, it's all got to align, it's all got to work together hand in hand. But I mean, taking off the technology bit, reiterating what the previous panel said, you know, the Helen's panel, it's not just about the tech, it's about everything within the cinema, the operations, the marketing, the sales, the booking. You know, we can't expect to turn on for such a massive film as Avatar, such a massive opportunity to reboot a format and hopefully create a sustainable revenue source for everybody here. The only way that's going to happen is if we all get ready for it well in advance. We prep the audience that this is coming, we show them 3D content through trailers, we allow the cinemas to run that content and play it and in 3D format. And as Ruth said, it's not going to be from day one. You have to let it breathe. You have to, you know, reassure the audience that what they're seeing now is different from, I'm not going to say the names of films, but we all know those films that kind of destroyed the format in that sense, and a wider appeal in this particular market. You know, there are other markets, Germany, Austria. You know, we've got, I'm sure, people on the CTC video link today, where 3D is still incredibly strong. So it can work. You know, we're very similar to the German market in terms of the demographics of our audience. and it's still very, very strong over there. They do great numbers on 3D. In Austria, they did 70%, I think it was, in the last animation. So, you know, it can work. We just need to make sure that we're prepping and getting ready and starting today. Doctor Strange tickets are on sale today. We need to make sure that that's the first film in this journey towards Avatar 2.
Yeah. And Tony, what about the screen side of that tech in terms of maintenance?
Well, if you think about, if you saw Avatar on that screen's now 13 years old. If you saw, what was it, Chicken Little, on the same screen, that screen's now 17 years old. So it's dust. It's mainly dust. How's the auditorium been cleaned? Where does the air conditioning come in and out? So you've got to put a test pattern up on that screen and see if you can get your 4-foot lander.
Yeah, so test early, basic procedures, of which you can all help, CTC can help as well. Yeah.
And a lot of projectors these days, when they were showing 3D, they might have had a 6 kilowatt lamp in them, they've now got a 4 kilowatt lamp in or a 3. So they've got to relamp all their projectors to show 3D properly. And that was one of the biggest problems as well. A lot of them, they just weren't bright enough.
Yeah, back then.
Just weren't bright enough.
Julie?
I just wanted to add, just also, you know, it's very important to be aware of the supply chain crisis. Kind of has to be on, you know, on people's minds as well with glasses. You know, something to think about now because, as we know, there are, you know, longer lead times, can be price increases and stuff like that, and with everything else as well, longer lead times, you know, with projectors, servers, everything.
Logistics costs
and
problems, yeah.
It comes down to testing, early testing as well. You know, the earlier you can test, now you may realise that there's benefit for possible lens cleaning or prism replacement or, dare I say, a projector upgrade. And from that perspective, at least now you're realising you may have time still to react before Avatar.
Which brings me on to this question. God forbid, if budget is available, what can be done and when should exhibitors turn attention to it? I think we've answered the question when attention should be turned, but yeah, assuming there could be budget, which for some there would be, it's money well spent, we would say. You know, what should exhibitors be thinking about? Not just to shamelessly plug, obviously, all of your own brands, but on a bigger picture, what should they really be thinking about in terms of investment if they can? Could be people to test it rather than new equipment. But
it's new equipment. I mean, you could, you could put one of the new breed of screens in. You will definitely get better 3D than you will on the current screen that you've got installed. That's obvious for everybody to see. Other than that, it's cleaning the screen. You can dust 3D screens, but it's not easy. So, but you can clean the screen.
Do you know what, going back to basics, it was said in the previous panel, it was Paul that said it, sit in the cinema, put a pair of 3D glasses on, watch a decent bit of content, not 2 minutes, watch 20 minutes of a film if you possibly can, make sure it looks okay. You know, you're all incredibly, you know, used to watching great content. I'm sure your delivery is wonderful in your cinemas. You'll know if it doesn't look right. We did some content checking on some stuff for a trade show a couple of years ago. I won't name the cinema. We went into the cinema and the content we displayed and we saw, it was inverted. And we spoke to the techs in the cinema and they said that it had been that way for a long time, since the server had been changed and they didn't know how to replace the settings. But obviously nobody from the cinema had sat and watched some content because they would have seen it immediately. So it's you know, the simple things, but making sure that you take the time to do it. You know, speak to your integrators, get them to run test panel. We've got some test kits that we've given to the CTC. It will be posted hopefully on your website. You'll be able to do that. You know, we would encourage everybody to test as much as possible. So Real D doesn't matter. Whatever your format is, what 3D format, we want it to look great. When that customer comes in, we want them to walk in the door and be blown away by what they see. We don't want them to go away thinking, I'm not watching that again. That was awful. It's the last thing anybody wants in this room because we're going to destroy our own market.
Yeah, this should be the revival, not the beginning of the end, shouldn't it? Which everybody hopes.
We're hoping to put a sample piece of screen out if it's needed. If customers want it, we can supply a sample piece of screen. And all you need to do is hang it over the screen in front of it, in the middle of your picture. And it will tell you what your current screen is doing.
And your budget doesn't necessarily need to be big. Obviously, there is a larger budget for a new projector than there would be for other things, but at the same time, it could be something so simple as having the prism cleaned rather than replacing the whole projector. It could be replacing the prism within your existing projector, or it could be something that's not going to cost you anything, and that's something we've all mentioned, and particularly Bobby mentioned as well, is bringing your integrator and ask your integrator to manage a service or a simple cleaning of the whole process. That could be something that doesn't have to be big budget stuff.
Yeah. So I assume some of the integrators, some of who are here, will be looking into that probably as a service right now. Yeah. Have we? Sorry, how are we like for time, Sam?
Well, we were out of time really before we started, but that's irrelevant.
Yeah. Okay.
I have quite a lot of questions, but Adam, I'm going to give them to you because I think it's probably you can sort them out better because you've got the knowledge, unlike me.
Terrified now.
Can the distributors release some good 3D trailers so customers can check 3D systems are working okay? Maybe Avatar 1? Bobby?
Well, okay, so let's just take a step back. We're aware that John Landau has been in this country, in the UK. He brought some footage over here to show some exhibitors. He showed them that content in 3D and told them essentially that and from what we understand, they were blown away by what they saw. I haven't seen any, so I'm not going to comment on it, but from what we're told, it was in fantastic shape. Now, we're also told that there will be 3D content. There will be a 3D trailer for Avatar 2. I don't know the timelines on that. Again, I'm not going to comment on that, but it will eventually come through. Disney, we know, have been in touch with many of the exhibitors already. If you haven't been in touch by Disney, I'm sure at some point this will happen. What they're doing is trying to understand how your setup works, what it is that we know that as you said before, Adam, there will be multiple formats of this film. We know that will include multiple light levels. They will want the best quality content that you can possibly show in your auditorium. They will try and provide you with that content, which is kind of an incredible thing that they're doing. It's an amazing undertaking. And it's important then that, as you say, we have trailers, we have the content in order to then, once we've got that system all in place, they deliver the content in order to do it. We need to, though, we need to be playing a 3D film, really, to put a 3D trailer on the front of it. So it's about booking again, making sure people are ready and able to see that content.
Yeah, I've got another question here which I've had people ask me over the last couple of days, and I know you sort of a pro all 3D, not just it's got to be real deep, the whole level to be good. Yeah. And this question is, are there still, which I think is relevant to a lot of independent cinemas, are there still 3D systems that use active glasses, e.g. expand for use with white screens for people who don't have to then upgrade to silver screens?
There aren't really, I think that there might be one in China that's produced so, but it's not a widely used technology. The stereo contrast ratios on them are lower on those systems. We would encourage you to think about using an active system and passive glasses, and speaking to Tony about PWT, or it looks white, or speaking to us about an ultimate screen, something else that enables you to essentially have a white screen. It's not 100% white, but it's pretty much there, and still getting those benefits of the 3D. The active glasses won't be as good a quality, they just won't.
Yeah. And just one for you, Tony. Do screens degrade in game? How much, and if they do, should they be replaced? Is that from Richard, that question?
We've measured screens that have been out there for 12, 15 years, and we're getting good game measurements back from them. It's all a matter of climate. We know, we've seen people clean cinemas, and they've started at the back with a leaf blower and just under the seats, all at the screen, and we've seen it done. Even on day one, when you install a screen, it's very, very static. And it comes with a jiffy foam on it, and as you pull it off, if there's dust in the auditorium, you can actually see it leave the floor and go on the screen. So that's your biggest enemy, is dust. Grease from fast food outlets. Yeah, if you've got a Burger King and a this and a that, and it's all coming in through the. How often do they change those filters? It's all that sort of thing. So, yeah.
But there is a test that you can use. You can put on the screen which will give you an idea of pretty much condition of your surface.
Yeah.
Which we encourage people to use.
Cool. Well, I think we better wrap up in the interest of time. So thank you. Hopefully that's been interesting. I think the main thing is start early and reach out to any of these guys, or CTC, of course, CTC website. And hopefully this is the revival of 3D we all would like it to be. Thank you.
And thank you to Julia, Mark, Robin, Tony, and Adam.
So now, our final session of the day, we've saved the best till last. Maybe. Several years ago, we were warned not to cross the streams. But cross them we did, and in doing so, we created a force of nature. Excuse me. I live in a little village that has got a 15th century pub. And I'm sure that some of the regulars in there have been there since it was built. And they will tell you it is a fact that the more you drink, the more intelligent you become. Now, these guys, over the last 3 years, have been podcasting, they've been drinking, and they've been talking cinema technology, and today they're here in person. So could we welcome to the stage, please, within the pub, we have Mike Bradbury, the landlord.
Mark Bradbury. That's hilarious.
I'm sorry, Mike Bradbury. And I didn't even have any of that red stuff. Mike Bradbury, regular Kevin Markwick.
How do you know about my bowel movement?
Purvis. And Saul Mahoney for a live edition of In the Pub.
Rock and roll. What is that? That's an orange juice. Oh, hello.
Does this work? Does this work?
Well, I asked for an old-fashioned. That's not an old-fashioned. What is that?
It's an old-fashioned
It's an old-fashioned orange juice.
Prohibition old-fashioned.
Oh, right, okay. Yes, it's a speakeasy one. Sorry, Mike. Hello. It's no problem.
I must have the one Tony had. This one.
This one does.
Does anything work?
Well, it's got something in it. It's only technology.
Hello, does this one work? Can anyone hear me?
That's not on. You need to turn it off.
Yeah, Chief Technical Officer of Odeon can't turn a bloody microphone on.
He has people to do it normally.
Yeah.
I do normally have people to do it for me. Thank you everybody for staying. We are not prepared at all.
Nope.
We've got a few questions that I've left in the book. I'm going to open the beer for the effect. Sorry, Andy. Andy wanted a beer, couldn't have one. So thank you very much for coming along. Just plugging the podcast. It's on all of the podcasting places, wherever you get your podcasts, and if it's not there, it'll be somewhere else. We've got some questions. We've got some questions. We're going to hurry up because we're already late, so we're not going to funny about. We're going to continue to talk about Avatar 2, but we're going to be getting a little bit more in depth with the testing and the logistics of distribution, even though we don't really know how it's going to be distributed yet. But given that we've got some people that can actually know about these kind of things, we figured we'd try. So, testing. Have you had some content yet, Kevin?
No.
No.
No, I've only got 2 cinemas. No one gives a toss about me.
Has anybody seen the testing? Because I've seen the testing. No. There's lots
No.
of,
Well, you're important.
I'm
That's
not.
why.
I'm not.
You've got more than 2 cinemas.
Odeon are a bit more important. But I'm
Yeah, right.
This is a million.
You know what I mean.
Not what they are.
No, I've not. Is it good?
It's not great.
Oh, wow.
It works.
But this is testing from Disney.
Testing from Disney.
Wow.
Yeah, there's lots of them. I think there's 5.
Right.
2D.
Is it Avatar 2D?
2D HFR 14.
Oh, it's HFR.
3D HFR 14. 4K 2D. 4K 3D for those of you that can play it. And
who's that?
2K Atmos 2D. So there's a lot, and I believe there's lots of different. The test footage is obviously all just one master, but there are lots of foot Lambert versions as well, which Bobby was talking about earlier on. That video Bobby did, and that was brave. That was very brave. That has to be said.
I was wondering what lane that was, because I quite like to traverse it myself and be in Bobby's shoes, just talking to myself, you know, camera. Wonderful.
Great single take movie making.
Yeah. Damn brave. I wanted to just ask about distribution of something like that with all of the different versions. We've spoken to various technical managers in the past, and they've all said, you know, there's like 750 different versions just of a standard film. Never mind something as complex as Avatar, there are very different versions. Would that fill you guys with dread?
Yes. I think from my point of view, in my role, I would deliver to the distributor in whatever territory, and then it's kind of down to them to get it to their exhibitors. But having worked for a distribution company in the UK, there are so many issues along the way that you know, maybe the wrong version of the film has gone to a site that's not necessarily able to take electronic delivery, and it might be in the Outer Hebrides, so then you've got, you know, 4 days for it to get there, and with a film this size, people are going to have to start ingesting this earlier. You're talking of like terabytes of content to upload onto your server.
What, just for one version of it?
I don't know the specifics, but I would say that it's a lot for the HFR version, especially if you're talking 3D.
I guess it'd be reasonable to say that if you have more than one screen, more than one technology, so 3D or 2D, that data is going to start stacking up, and you need to be prepared for that.
And then also, if you look at it from an international standpoint rather than just the UK, then you have to think about, so let's say Ukraine, for instance, they will have a Ukrainian and Russian DCP. So you've got to think about how much extra data that's going to be on top of your OV, which we are so very lucky to need here. But any other country that requires subtitles, that's extra data that they're going to have to ingest. And then if you look at more complex languages that don't necessarily use a Latin-based alphabet, especially in 4K, then your subtitles need to be burned in, so then you don't even have the option of a version file. It's a completely whole different DCP rather than just having that little version file which might be the same size as KDM. So it can be terrifying. I'm really interested to see how Disney do it, whether it works, and whether this is, you know, at the forefront of a new way of delivering.
Are we not making a big assumption here as well? Sorry to be the git in the room, but who gives a shit about 3D and Avatar, do we?
Sorry, say that again.
I mean, really, as an exhibitor, I'm like, I'm not spending more money on that bloody thing that happened.
But you're going to run it 2D, maybe?
Possibly, yeah. All right, I might run it 2D, but I know there's people here, and I'm really, really sorry, but I mean, do we really care that much that we've got to put ourselves through this again?
Well, the audience will care if the film doesn't run properly.
Yeah.
Yes,
And
but do they care about
cinemas will have
Avatar
problems
2?
if they're not.
Do they? I mean, that's fine. You know, Avatar 2.
But you're also looking at it from a UK perspective, and obviously Disney are going to be going worldwide, and 3D is huge.
That's fine.
Let's think about
Do
China.
I have to put myself through it? That's
Oh, well, we're not talking about
You don't have to like every movie that you play, right?
You know,
no, but we've been through this Jedi mind trick before.
3D is the future.
Yeah, but you're going to get definite massive FOMO if everyone's showing 3D and you're not. He will, I know.
But it'll do the thing. And then what'll happen is we'll spend all this bloody money and then it'll be on Disney Plus in 3 weeks. Come on.
3 weeks beforehand.
So will it be on Disney Plus in 3D? Because maybe that's
Because people don't care, that's why. They'd have bought their 3D tellies.
So just going back to the distribution set.
It's supposed to be brawl?
I'm not even drunk.
You're outside. With all of the, I mean, let's pretend for 1 minute you do show it in 3D.
Okay.
Would you go to extra lengths to play it in a higher foot Lambert? I mean, would you have to play it in a different foot Lambert in each screen? Because that's the possibility.
No. I mean, no, I'm just not going to bother because, you know, my experience is it's in 3D. Oh, really? Oh.
So the fact that James Cameron...
Yeah, I know, you can never write James Cameron off. That I do admit. You know, he does pull it out of his backside, doesn't he?
Yeah.
Sinking ship? Get out of here. I was going to see that.
We were all wrong.
We were.
We were. Therefore, does it not put a little bit of doubt in your mind that you might...
Yeah, of course. But it'll come and it'll go, and then...
But then
I'll have that big dusty box of bloody glasses that no one wants to take.
Yeah, but then there'll be another one with Avatar 3 and then 4 because he's not just making one, is he? He's
going to torture us forever.
He's going to come down the tracks for a while. So...
I'm slightly playing devil's advocate here, I say, for
He's
comic
not,
effect.
he's not.
Look, my dad showed 3D in 1950, blah, 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 at House of Wax, you know. It comes, it goes, it comes, it goes. Maybe it'll come again for a bit, then it'll go away again, then it'll come back again.
Cameron didn't make that.
Maybe it would have been a better film.
If anyone can make HFR work, surely it's James Cameron. The guy's a scientist, he's an engineer, he invents stuff. Do you know what I mean? He's just a clever guy.
Don't tell Ang Lee that Mike just said that.
Well, no, Ang Lee's clever as well, but, you know, he just chose the wrong films. So...
Okay, so, what do you think, guys? Do you think it's coming back?
I was just going to say that, look, we've just spent the last couple of days talking about the re-emergence and bringing back audiences. There's no two ways about it that Avatar made some ground, let's say, when it was released, and there was a lot of hoo-ha about it. It was great, and it pulled in audiences, and it set off a 3D, not revolution.
Pile of crap, that's what it set off.
Well, it happened.
Space Monkeys 2.
We had to deal with it, and now not everybody likes it. Agreed. But some people like gimmicks, and some people don't. But the fact is that this film's coming up, and there's going to be a lot of noise about it, and it's a really good opportunity for the industry to get people back into cinemas, because there should be something that's going to blow them away. And it can't blow them away on a TV screen.
No, but it can't blow. I mean, as an exhibitor, you show me then. Show me now that it's going to blow them away. Don't expect me to book it 3 weeks before it comes out and I've got to do it. You know, show me now. I know I'm not important and an idiot, but show me now.
If I could, I would.
Yeah.
So would I. I'd show you now. In fact, I'd love to have all of the test content now, because we've not had all of the test content yet.
But have you seen the 4K HDR 3D Turbo Nutter Bastard version?
No. I've not seen the 4K 3D one yet, because we can only really do them in the Dolby cinemas or some dual setups, and we're giving that to Dolby to do.
But if it really is something that we've got to do, show me now. Show it to me now. Don't show it to me in November.
The thing about testing now, it's a bit like...
Even testing, show me the bloody film.
It is about testing, because it's about compatibility of the content and your equipment. And the thing about testing is test early and test as close to as well. Don't just test once, because things change. It's belt and braces. This thing has to work. And I think the audience is there. They're paying good money and they've got high expectations. And there will be a lot of messaging out there about the quality and the technology and stuff like that. And where it's available, it should and it must work.
I don't disagree with that in the slightest. Of course it should. But I'm an exhibitor that's got to spend money making it work again, as a you might. You know, it's like Okay, well show me that it's worth me spending the money. Show it to me now. Don't just take that. I have to respect it on trust. It's, oh my God, it's the most amazing thing I've ever seen. I need it in my cinema now. No, you've got to convince me, surely. If there was you don't need to convince me because no one gives a toss about me. But you need to convince Mike.
Yeah. If there was alien flavoured popcorn from out the corner that you could charge double for, would you invest in it?
Sorry, say that again.
If there was alien flavoured popcorn that you could charge double for,
no, I still would.
You not do it?
I want to see it. I want to taste it. And go, cool.
Of course you would.
Where's this come from? Mars? Oh, it has.
Would it stop you from stocking it?
No, but I'd want to. If I liked it, I would. Yes. So show me. Don't expect me on faith to say that this is really going to be a game changer and this is really going to revive it. Bloody show me. Show us.
I'm sure that will happen soon. I think they just,
Well, not for me. I'll never get invited anyway. I wonder why.
Can you imagine?
It's very true. It's very true. So I think they will. I think they're still devising their strategy. Personally, I don't know.
Well, I'd have to say, Cameron has sprung this on us, hasn't he?
Well, yeah. Come out of nowhere.
Who knew there was going to be an Avatar 2 at some point?
Yeah, it has come out of nowhere. One of the questions I was wanting to ask Bobby, actually, but I can ask you probably as well, although I want your opinion, is do you think when it comes to 3D that there should, I've always thought there should be a less is more mentality when it came to 3D, that it should be more of an event film like an Avatar.
Absolutely.
Rather than flooding the market like we have done in the past. What's the thoughts on that? I mean, I clearly know your
I'm also not a massive advocate, but I think that I did hit the end of all of the retrofitted 3D, so I do have a very negative experience. But I'm not convinced that I would want to go, and I would also need convincing, essentially, because I'm quite happy with my 2D 24 frames per second, suspending disbelief for a moment. I don't need it to feel actiony. I don't need to feel like I'm on set. I don't feel the need for additional immersion. So for me, I mean, I love 3D if I'm at a theme park, and I'll leave it there.
Top of Blackpool Tower.
So,
I, on a sort of not content related, but actually the sustainability and the environmental impact of glasses is kind of the thing that concerns me most about constant 3D movies, and how we had to learn lessons on all sides to deal with that. And I don't know if that's been sort of solved yet, but certainly was a problem that I had as these things, showing a trailer at Cine Europe and then chucking the glasses away because they're not usable is a waste, and we need to be more sustainable in that area. So personally, 3D it can be a great experience, but it doesn't mean that it makes the film better necessarily. It's just the experience. But there were those consequences, let's say.
Well, I for one are definitely going to be getting behind Avatar 2.
Hurrah!
Because I believe in James Cameron, frankly. You can't write him off. He hasn't made he's made one bad film.
Has he not?
Yeah, he's made one.
Piranha 2?
Yeah.
That was quite bad, wasn't it?
Pretty bad.
Was that in 3D?
No, but Piranha 3DD was.
Oh, yeah.
Which was a great film. I liked it. Okay, so we've done Avatar. I think we should be getting behind it personally.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I will go and see it, but it will be a lovely 2D version.
Will it be 2D HFR? It's not actually HFR. It's variable frame rate. It's not 48.
Variable frame rate. Couldn't he make his mind up?
Well, that's what he's learned, isn't it? Is that he doesn't want it to be...
I thought he was supposed to be a director. Doesn't he know what frame rate he wants it in?
Yeah, but only when it's moving around really fast.
Well, if it's variable frame rate, I think that it could work if it's in the right spots, because I think high frame rate works very, very well for pan and scan. It works very well for, The Hobbit, for instance, was absolutely perfect when you had landscape shots, but as soon as you had high frame rate for action scenes or battles, it was just absurd.
For me, personally.
Yeah, you should have a warning that said, now, this bit will look like EastEnders.
Anyway, we're going to go on to something else now because we've run out of time already.
Oh.
Equipment shortages. I remember you on a right moan you couldn't get.
Me? I wasn't moaning.
Yeah, you were.
To be fair, I'm still waiting for.
You're still waiting for what?
Which is for a time. But yeah, there are problems. There are definitely problems.
Yeah,
but I don't think it's any specific manufacturer's fault. I just think it's the world that we're living in at the moment.
Shortage of chips.
Yeah, you just got to be patient, young Padawan.
Is it chippy next door? Definitely. Is there a chippy next door to you?
A chippy?
Yeah. Chip
put chips in it.
Keep hearing all these, we haven't got any chips.
It's the chips, it's full, you know, they're always going to do you in one way or another, aren't they? Let's face it.
Yeah, it is a problem. Is anybody else waiting? I can't see you anyway. But is anybody else waiting for equipment to arrive that's way overdue? Anyone?
Yeah.
I see someone waving.
There's James Cameron back there, he's still waiting.
Yeah, it's a bit of an issue. So it is a massive.
Yeah, but I mean, there really isn't much we can do, is there? We've just got to sit and wait until it
But if let's for instance say you did want to install an IMS server and you wanted
so I see where you're going with this.
So you wanted to upgrade because you wanted to play Avatar in high frame rate and all the other gubbins.
You might not be able to.
Should you be ordering it now?
Well, I'm not sure it's going to help you. Quite honestly.
Should you be having that conversation?
You should, don't you think?
If you've got plans, you should be.
Well, yeah.
Yeah, so don't decide late. Mind you, you've got a new kit and definitely.
Yeah, well, I mean, we got a new laser in Birmingham. That should do it all right, shouldn't it?
What laser?
Laser.
With the right server.
Oh, what? I bought the wrong bloody server.
Make sure you get the right content as well for that.
Yeah.
As well.
Oh. It's got the alchemy in it, so do you high frame rate?
Should be, yeah. Oh, thank God, you're probably alright.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we did late kit to death.
Yeah.
We properly.
Yes, but no, it's a really good point though, that if actually we should be thinking about this now, and if there are shortages, will that affect the world, the global role? You know, I mean, it won't affect the global rollout, but then, Mr. Cameron might be disappointed at the number of sites that are going to be able to run it.
I think Mr. Cameron was going to be disappointed anyway, because I think that this release, especially if you have many versions, is going to require physical delivery rather than electronic, which essentially rules out financially a lot of the Indian market, let's say.
Right.
So people are going to be priced out if it becomes a physical delivery situation, which is probably how it's going to be.
I kind of hope they run out of drives so that e-delivery is forced, because you can start delivering the minute the first frames are ready.
Well, we've discussed this before at length, when people are willing to release the finished, when distributors are willing to release the finished product, and it's not, the film could be finished for 2 months, but they're not going to start delivering it that early because people don't want it sitting around on servers that early. But that's something that's going to have to be thought about, because this is going to take a long time to download. It's all going to depend on your speed and your capability in that site. So, I said before, this is going to revolutionise the way that people need to look at distribution.
There's no harm in languishing on a server in a cinema without a KVM, though, is there?
Yeah, but the size of this content, you're not going to have anything else on your server. You can't show any of the films if it's just sitting there.
The hard drive's scarce. Anyone know where we get some hard drive?
But all versions? It is going to be quite interesting if you need, just say 3 basic versions in your script, your cinema. Where's it all stored?
Well, yeah, I mean, I know we're kind of going back to Avatar now, but
let's give it another kicking.
We were asked, and people are being asked, what's your TMS sizes and what's your server sizes and things like that. So they are thinking about these things, and I'm sure it's formulating their strategies. They're also asking what ratio of screens you have as well.
Oh, is it in a silly ratio?
I don't know.
See, we don't know. We don't know.
But I know that there's obviously certain sort of IMAX-y versions where they're taller and they're filling the screen if you've got a 1:8:5 or a 2:1 screen. So I don't know whether they're looking at releasing it in flat, scope, both 2:1.
Floating windows.
Floating windows.
Dirty windows.
Oh.
Floating windows? Where's that?
In the floating windows.
No. Do you know what? Hell is a floating window.
I had to deal with it. I can't go into what floating.
Oh, okay. Tina Turner had dirty windows.
But
No, she has steamy windows. Sorry.
did you know her personally?
Well, I can't say.
I think that with these are all like great questions that they're asking you and various exhibitors, but at the end of the day, if your TMS is not big enough to hold that content, or you don't have a screen that's going to be suitable for that aspect ratio, and you don't have a budget, again, you are pricing people out the market.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of sites as well now have got, a lot of the minimum requirements to be able to play it in some form of high frame rate. Whether that's even if it's just 2K high frame rate, so there's been a lot of people that have automatically changed equipment since Hobbit, since Gemini Man, even for Gemini Man.
Really? Fools.
Possibly. I don't know. But I don't know. I think there needs to be a push if people are being asked to actually actively spend money to upgrade, though. I think it's like, no, we've got enough kit to cover most screens.
But, it's more of a political point than a technical point. But, yes, okay, let's all invest this lovely, lovely money and tell us it's going to have a 6-month window so you can make the most of it. We're not going to put it on our streaming platform after 4 weeks or 6 weeks or whatever, because that makes us look mugs, doesn't it? That really mugs us off if we spend all of this money and then it's on the telly.
That's a good point. I mean, the Windows argument is political and there's a lot that's been going on, but I think you're right. If you're expected to invest in a lot of money to get a lot of people in, and then 3 weeks later, it kind of it just pulls the rug under.
It does, but it shows a lack of confidence in what we can do as well, to be honest.
I have faith.
Well,
I have.
In what?
Well, that's enough for me.
Where do I sign?
I have faith that won't be the case. I think, whether it's Disney, whether it's James Cameron or whoever, but I think James Cameron has got enough clout to be able to demand whatever he wants.
Yeah. And the point is, he's hopefully going to make a movie that people will only want to see in the cinema when they hear about it. I mean, yes, we know there are always alternative ways of viewing content, but from the get-go, it's hopefully just going to blow audiences away and they'll keep coming back the second and third time.
I hope so. Yeah. For everyone else's sake.
One of the great things about 3D is it harder to pirate?
Well, that's how they sold it to us in the first place, wasn't it? Well, it's the only thing you can get in the cinema and you can't pirate it. Oh, here's bloody football in 3D. Oh, thank you.
The selling point. Really, that was kind of a add-on.
It was though, wasn't it? It was on telly quicker than a rat out of an aqueduct.
Quick sidebar, have you worked out what that drink is yet?
Not sure. I think you've been slipping me a Mickey, haven't you?
Just asked for orange juice.
Is it orange juice?
Oh, that's what you asked for.
No, I didn't. I asked for an old-fashioned.
It's supposed to be an old-fashioned.
An old-fashioned? Oh, anyway.
It's an old-fashioned orange juice.
It's very nice.
Anyway, we really have done out of time.
Have we run out of time?
No, I don't know. Have we, Phil?
Yeah, we have. They've heard enough of this old nonsense. Listen to the podcast. It's way more entertaining because we get drunker by the minute.
Just a very, very quick one, and you'll know where I'm going on this. But if you ever do listen to the podcast, listen to it first 5 minutes on half speed. If you listen to it on half speed, that's what we really sound like.
But we should definitely get Saul back. We should definitely get Saul back for the recording.
Is that the last half? The last 5 minutes
no, it's tremendous. It's great. But you should definitely come back for a recording. Definitely. If you want to, of course. After this debacle.
You might have to go to Birmingham.
Yeah. Yeah, it was good. It was good.
Very good. Yeah. We did have one more topic. Very, very quickly going to cover just laser projection warranties. And all I'm going to say, because we want to cover this on the podcast, if you do have a laser projector, just speak to your manufacturer about your warranties on it, because we are moving away from Zen and Lamp, so we do need to make sure that we're covered.
Give them a hard time.
So, yes. Just don't assume it's not going to fail, but let's just be sure. So, that was just a little comment from me, just planting seeds. Just planting seeds.
Much like Avatar 2,
Yeah.
it's not going to fail, but let's just be sure.
And every faith in James Cameron, I love the guy. He's a
You
scientist.
love James Cameron, don't you? Why don't you marry James Cameron?
I would.
Yeah.
I absolutely would. I would do it tomorrow.
You love him, you want to kiss him.
We're such children. Okay, so I think we kind of have to wrap up now because I've got a train. Phil's bored. He can't wait to go home. He's got a headache, and we're gonna let him off. So thanks very much for listening. Sorry we're not prepared. Thanks for the bill.
Aren't they just great? You really need to do a proper search on the podcast to listen to them online when they're uncensored. But that brings the day to a close. We hope you've enjoyed it and found it informative. We'd like to take the opportunity to thank Phil and his team for entrusting us to deliver our One Community Day with him. We'd encourage you to visit the website. There's an awful lot of stuff on there. And if you can donate something, I know it's difficult times, but if you can donate something to help us continue do the work we do, then we would be eternally grateful. So thank you very much all for coming and safe trip home.